Where are we? Oh, there's the camera there.
Yeah, just a conversation between you.
All right. All right, I'm Bob Ambrogi. Welcome to the ILTACON live stream here. I am a writer about legal technology. I have a blog called Law Sites. I also do a podcast called Law Next, and happy to be being part of this inaugural ILTACON live series here. I am here with, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and say who you are.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. Great to talk to you. I'm Trina Buckley. I'm a Chief Product Officer with ActionStep, which is a law firm operations platform. So legal accounting and practice management. So yeah, excited to be here on the floor.
Yeah. How's ILTACON been for you so far?
It's been really good. We really look forward to ILTACON every year. You know, it's just a great community event, and get the chance to talk to some of our customers and a lot of our technology partners. Actually, that's one of the things we love about ILTACON is just the technology community and getting to have those really strategic conversations on the floor. So it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one because everybody's been asking me, how many ILTACONs have you been to? Do you know how many you've been to?
Yeah, I believe it's actually maybe 5 in a row. We might have been a little bit more sporadic for that, but I'm pretty sure this is our kind of 5th as a, presence on the floor type of thing, So we would have always have had team here. But yeah, the last, as we've sort of moved up market in terms of the types of law firms that we, have as customers, bigger firms, that sort of thing, ILTACON makes a lot more sense for us, obviously, So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just for the advantage of people who may not be all that familiar with ActionStep, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you serve? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as I said, a law firm operations platform, mostly for mid-sized law firms. So it tends to be a mix of mixed practice law firms or boutique firms, kind of multi-office boutique firms, that sort of thing. We're actually in multiple locations. So we have a really big customer base in Australia and a little in New Zealand. That's where we were founded. We have a pretty decent customer base in North America, and then we've got a really growing customer base in the UK as well. So quite a kind of global view of what's happening in the mid-market, and that's really our North Star is really understanding that market, building a fantastic platform for that. What we believe to be a to date sort of underserved segment of the law firm market,
Yeah. What's been the expansion in the United States? I think the last time I looked at ActionStep was a couple of years ago. We had a conversation about some of your strategies around growing in U.S. markets. So what's been going on with that?
Sure. So I mean, look, we entered the U.S. market, quite some years ago, and what's really wonderful about ActionStep is how configurable it is, and so it's one of the reasons why it works so well for lots of different types of practice areas. So when we first entered the market, we actually really focused on some very niche practice areas, and our product was very much able to be configured for those, and so that played really well with, like I say, boutique kind of firms, so that's so as I said, it was about maybe 10 years ago. We've expanded a lot in the meantime. We have about 2,000 customers here now, and we've also more recently, about a year and a half ago, acquired a legal accounting product called Soluno, who are based out of Canada. And so what they are now,
which I don't know before.
Correct, exactly. Yep. So they so that's now ActionStep Legal Accounting. So and it just means we have this really great end-to-end platform, for North American customers.
Yeah, that was one of those acquisitions that made a lot of sense to me because it was a perfect fit.
Yes.
It seemed to me for ActionStep, and it was like kind of custom made for your audience, for your market.
It really is, and it's a wonderful product, and we've had some fantastic customers, but actually really importantly to us at ActionStep, we had such great team members come across as well with that platform. So much great legal tech talent, kind of injecting into ActionStep in the North American market in particular, so that's been great.
So what's new with ActionStep now? What have you been focusing on more of lately?
Sure. So, I mean, I actually got, stepped into this seat running product management about 6 months ago. And my focus really is about how do we set ActionStep up for success for the next, number of years. And so I've really been focused on putting together our kind of next 2-year strategic roadmap. And sort of intertwined with that is we have launched a center of excellence around AI. We've been very, very thoughtful about how, we've wanted to bring AI into our product. There's obviously so much talk about AI, but and so many fantastic products out there. A lot of them in that Gen AI space, which, as a sort of an operations platform focused on the business of law, Gen AI doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense to us. We have bits and pieces of it in our product already, particularly around time. But actually with the kind of, influx of agentic AI, that really makes a lot of sense for us. And so what we've kind of really, built into our longer term roadmap now is how do we actually bring agentic AI into, what's already a really strong workflow platform, into some of our reporting, into some of the search functionality, that sort of thing, and documents, how documents are managed and accessed and action steps. So, we can really, we built out a really strong future where it's really about building great product and just sort of weaving, AI functionality throughout it, so that people really are seeing those efficiency gains. And it feels like an extension of their natural workflow rather than sort of jumping in and out of different point solutions to try and deliver a particular task, so making that, feel seamless in your day to day.
What is the center of excellence? I mean, is it kind of like a lab? Is it a group focused on how to best practices, implementation? That sort of thing?
Yeah. Look, there is an element of there's a few different streams to it. I think you have to sometimes put a name on something to actually make it something that you really care about, own, focus on, and so but there's a few different elements to it. One is, as I say, product. What are we going to do in the product, and so really having that clear vision of, it's AI for the business and management of law, and then the other pieces around, really engendering some fantastic AI practices across our team, and not just our engineering and product teams, but actually all of our teams. So we recently launched Scout, which is our AI support chatbot. So that really helps our customers just get the answers they need very quickly, rather than sort of, sifting through help articles and things like that. It also really helps our customer team be very efficient. But they also are using, their own, AI support products, behind the scenes, so not necessarily customer facing, but helping them be more efficient and that sort of thing. So across the business, really making sure that we're actually utilizing the tools that are available to us. And then the other piece is team, so we've put together a really strong team that are focused on the future of AI, the future of law. So we've got a really strong leader, Franco Primavesi, who is an expert in AI and data and all of those things. And then we've hired 2 engineering teams that are really focused on that whole world. So that's sort of those 3 things combined make up that center of excellence,
And I guess something I'm always wondering about is when you're in your shoes working on product, what are you hearing from your customers? What are they asking for? What are they fearful of? What are they excited about?
Yes. We ask a lot, actually. Our whole roadmap is based on what our customers have asked for, and we've been really transparent about that. And we, engage with our customers on what we're planning and ask them to give feedback. And so we're constantly evolving and tweaking our plans based on what we hear specifically from our own customer base. We also do, quite a few market surveys, and all of that information, we publish these surveys on the mid-market. All of that information helps to inform our strategy as well. The things that we're hearing really are, the things that we focus on around, workflow and really connecting data from, if you think about how a law firm works, everything from intake all the way through to a bill cycle and beyond. Making sure that data is managed well, is utilized correctly all the way through, not having these silos of information sitting across a firm, so that, the people who should have access to the information do have access to it. From a client point of view, law firms really care about, their clients feeling like they're getting the same service, from whoever they speak to in the firm, whether it is a billing administrator or, the partner that they work with, or the, reception on the front desk, that they can interact with that client in a really, high quality way because they've access to the same data. They know who they are. They feel known by that firm. So those are some of the things. Client experience is something that, firms consistently really, really care about. And so we really look at how we make sure that that's enabled, in the practice management system. The other, obviously, yes, of course, there are a lot of questions about AI and what it means for them and how they use it. And we've tried to be a good thought partner with our customers on that, to help them to really think through, the best use cases and how they can kind of, help their team to sort of, adopt things appropriately. And then the other piece that's coming through really strong from our customers is around change management. Change management. I know that word is overdone, right? Yeah. But it's just, with the adoption of all of these new tools, it creates, without some really thoughtful process mapping and thinking through, what they actually want to do, in their business, and what they're trying to achieve with some of these things, firms just end up with a collection of tools that isn't particularly useful to their business goals. And so, that we have a fantastic partner consulting community that we, engage our customers with and help them to work through that sort of change management process. And at the mid-size, we tend to see upper market change management is a bit more of a known quantity. You've got some teams of people who are focused on innovation and change management, that sort of thing. You don't have that at the mid-market,
Right.
and so we do, like I say, with this fantastic partner community that we have, help to sort of, fill in those gaps and support our customers in relation to that.
Yeah. Anything else new with Action Step? Anything else you're working on?
Yeah, so we have some really exciting things that we're working on right now, actually. We just came out in the last year or so with a great product called Builder, which is document automation. And we've just launched Capture, which is an advanced forms product. So kind of more in that workflow space, but actually the things we're working on that I'm really excited about are a whole new business intelligence module that also has AI insights across it. So that, when you're looking at the data, you actually can understand what it's telling you. Sometimes you can look at a chart and you're like, well, I don't really know what to do with this information. So, using AI to sort of, inform what actions they should take based on what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Working on that.
What kinds of stuff is subsumed within the business intelligence module?
What sits there?
Explain it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yes, it's so like visual dashboards.
Yeah.
So like it's really from if you think about from a management point of view, like what are the 10 things that you need to look at every single day so that you understand the health of your business.
Yeah.
So it's really making sure that they're seeing all that, but like I say, they're not just seeing it, they actually can absorb it and take action based on what they're seeing. So that is, we've always had fantastic reporting and Action Step, but making it more user friendly, interactive, and sort of that ability to kind of question what you're seeing, that sort of thing. So that's, we're working on that at the moment, and that's sort of coming out to early next calendar year. We also have an integration with iManage coming out around the same time. So that's another exciting one for us. One of the things that Action Step was sort of built on is a very open playing field. So we do integrate with other tools. We want to play nicely with the tools that our customers use. And make that really easy, and again, like I say, that sort of data seamlessness is really important as part of those integrations. So, that iManage is one that we've been asked for quite a bit from customers. So that's coming out soon.
Yeah, the mid-sized firm practice management landscape is kind of interesting to me because it seems that it's much more in flux or evolving than maybe larger firm or even smaller firm.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that way at all, or and how do you kind of see? How do you look at that landscape in terms of who's serving mid-sized firms and how they're serving them, and differences and commonalities?
Mm-hmm. Just in terms of just like how they think about their own practice management, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm just as somebody who is embroiled in this world. How do you feel like there's a lot of evolution still to take place here in this market, or are we kind of mature?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing just a professionalization of practice management, especially in the mid-market, we've noticed actually, that the sort of operations roles and true practice management roles are coming to the fore more and more. It sort of maybe used to be something that people did off the side of their desk, or maybe, paralegals or partners actually just had to, conduct the practice management as part of their day jobs to a certain extent, So that's sort of professionalization of the role and bringing in real business managers into these mid-sized firms, making really strong business decisions, doing some of that, thinking about, where's our firm going, where are we driving this business towards, and then sort of from our point of view, like what sort of technology do we need to support that, definitely seeing that. And you're seeing that particularly, in that sort of upper mid-market, those slightly larger mid-market firms in particular. Yeah. And we would have seen that in all of our geographies, you see it, I would say the United Kingdom probably, already had a lot of that kind of, professionalism in there in that sort of like business management, operations management space.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just seeing it a lot more now in North America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What else is on the roadmap for Action Step? What's ahead for the next year? What are we going to talk about next year here?
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about next year? Yeah. So, the other couple of things that we're looking at are around workflow. So, the thing that has always been sort of Action Step's secret sauce is our workflow and our matter management capability. And as I said earlier, with agentic AI kind of coming into the mix, adding that automation layer to our current really strong workflow is going to be a longer term project. It's probably a 2026 thing, but yeah, so that's also in play for us. So those are big chunky things that are going to make like a big difference to our customers. So we've got our whole team rallied around it. So it's a really exciting time. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else you wanted to
chat about?
Well,
I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing on the floor here? Are you seeing anything interesting or different this year versus previous years?
Well, it is interesting. I think what's interesting, and I actually talked about this with a couple of different people who said this. I've heard other people say this, and I've been thinking this, which is look at ILTACON for the prior 2 years and what we were talking about. 2 years ago, we were kind of like starting to talk about this Gen AI thing and what it all means, right? And then last year, people were talking about the kind of the possibilities of what we can do with it, talking a little more, having a more mature conversation about it, but still exploratory.
Yeah.
This year, you're really starting to see stuff happen, stuff be done, things get built. And there's been some pretty interesting product launches, I think, here. So, I mean, the energy here is amazing this year.
Yes.
This is, I think, the largest ILTACON ever, as I understand it. So you can really kind of feel the excitement in the industry. And there was a period when you didn't feel that in the legal tech industry. Things were kind of dormant, I felt. You probably wouldn't have seen it that way, maybe, but to me, there was several years of like same old.
Yeah.
But right now, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. I think like initially when we saw, an AI in particular sort of being talked about, it was, the gains weren't as extreme as they feel like they are now, and there's so many more platforms now that you can utilize to really kind of, bring these things into reach. They like, it felt like these were a little bit, out of reach for law firms. And now I think they're really starting to see the use cases and how it can actually work for them, and connecting the tools in together, I think that's the piece that maybe was missing. It was like, okay, that's great that one thing does something amazing over here, but how do I actually bring that into my day to day? And how does it make me a better lawyer for my client? So I think they're starting to see how they can actually bring these things into their kind of day to day, So I definitely feel that. And I do feel like the conversations that people are having are much more informed. Like we're all growing up as an industry and kind of understanding this a little bit more as well, so we're able to have more productive conversations.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking to me. It's been a real pleasure to catch up with you and hear what you're up to.
Absolutely. Pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, that does it for this session of ILTACON Live, I guess. All right, welcome to another ILTACON Live here, live at ILTACON, as the name would suggest. We are here at National Harbor in the Gaylord at the biggest ILTACON ever, interestingly. And my name is Bob Ambrogi. I write a blog called Law Sites. I have a podcast called Law Next, and I'm here with Brad Sidwell from Intap. Brad, how you doing?
Well, doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. How's the conference going for you so far? How are you doing?
It's just been tremendous. As you said, it's the largest, and you can feel it, right? You can feel the energy. You're walking up and down the halls, and you can absolutely see the amount of people that are here. Everyone with a smile on their face. 9 a.m. this morning, not so much. Now, great smile on their face. It's just been great.
Yeah. So somebody was saying they should have some sort of a hangover cure booth here or something. But,
perfect. Oxygen.
Anyway, so Brad, name, rank, serial number.
Sure.
What do you do? Who are you?
Absolutely. Brad Sidwell. I'm the technology strategist at Intap for the legal industry. Spent 27 years as a CIO of law firms and an Intap customer. So bring the customer perspective inside of Intap. And I get to go around the world helping clients strategize on how to make best use of our products and how they fit into their larger portfolio and ecosystem of technology.
It's really interesting. So we are at a point right now, obviously, when I'm assume a lot of the questions you're getting or a lot of the strategic concerns your clients have to do with AI. Is that fair to say? Is that fair. All you're talking about these days?
Just about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we at Intap, when we started down this AI journey, actually was many years ago. We did machine learning inside of our products, which I guess you could call it the beginning stages of AI back then. And we have now landed on what we call the applied AI concept, which is making sure that the AI we bring to the products is very specific to the use cases and tasks and workflows that already exist. We don't want someone searching for a way to use AI in our products. We're going to give them those inside the product and again, in the tasks that they're already doing so they can get immediate ROI out of it.
So kind of transparent, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And very transparent to the point where anytime we're utilizing AI, we want to give them a visual clue as to what we're doing with that. We want to give them the grounding that we use to come up with that generative AI. And so they're starting to trust what we're doing and can give us feedback on whether we're right or wrong, and we can continue to build that trust.
Yeah. By a visual clue, you mean so that they are aware of the fact that AI is at work
exactly
here
right.
and what they're trying to do.
We use the color purple right now. We'll see if that lasts forever. But yeah, it's purple and it's bold right there on the screen.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of how you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we're doing this week is announcing our brand new Intap Time version, and we have a feature in there called Quick Add where you can dictate a time entry, and we will parse out that time entry, put the right client matter associated to it, and create a narrative based upon what you dictated. We want them to understand we created that narrative, and so right there underneath that narrative is that purple indicator that Intap Assist created this. Let us know if it's right or wrong, edit it, verify it, and move on.
Is that narrative getting generated according to guidelines or something?
Absolutely. So we have two different guidelines that we're using. What we call the style and tonality of your firm. So for example, your firm may have a guideline that says first initial, last name, anytime you mention a name in a narrative. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that is the outside counsel guidelines, which is you can't use these words, you can't block bill. All of the narratives are then made compliant as we put them into the screen. Yeah.
And then what happens? So the AI is generating the narrative, the lawyer or whoever, timekeeper or whoever can go in and edit, correct, fix, I assume, all of that.
Yeah, and then we learn from that.
Yeah.
So if you didn't change anything, then we assume that was pretty good. So we're going to do something very similar next time. If you did change a few things, we're going to learn from that and make it very similar again.
Yeah. What else are you talking about? What else are you announcing here? What else is new with Intap?
Yeah, so we also have a brand new version of our intake and conflict system. And there we've done a combination, brand new user interface with all of the user design science behind it. We've done the one-way mirror where we watch people try to use the product, and then AI layered into that user interface. And so our big announcement this week is being able to take an email that talks about a new matter. And it starts down there with just a simple conversation of they have a new matter that a client has a new matter they're interested in opening with a firm. And then as we all know, that chain starts and it's who's going to do the work? What rates are we going to charge? What jurisdictions are involved? What offices need to be involved? Drag that over into our intake system. We'll parse it out using the power of AI linguistics and fill out the new matter intake form for you, which right now is a huge manual process and burden for people to do.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious as you're talking about this stuff, because you said you've been in this industry, we say almost 30 years or
Yeah,
something
32.
like that. CIO, we're working at Intap. Somebody asked me earlier today, is any of this really new, or is it really different, or is it just the same old, what goes around comes around?
Yeah.
So what's your take on what's happening right now and where we are right now?
I think that a lot of the concepts that we're bringing to the table now are things that people have done on some very small scale in the past. So I mentioned we did some machine learning, but we did not have the compute power that AI brings, and we did not have the linguistics capability. I remember rewriting UIs in a different language, literally rewriting them.
Yeah.
Now we flip a switch and the AI translates everything on the screen.
Right.
So not 100% new, but boy, the power of it is unprecedented. And then your ability to use that to solve real business challenges inside the products, I think, are unprecedented.
Yeah. As you talk to your customers around the world, are they more excited, more fearful about AI? What are you hearing from them about this?
It's interesting. I'll have to go back 32 years ago to start the answer to this. So my first job in law firms was, I was told, was to teach lawyers how to use computers. What I quickly realized was it was about convincing them to use computers. And as we went through that process, the back office systems, the administrative side of the law firms, is where the first compute ROI happened. We were able to do accounting better than we ever did before. We were able to do things in the back office better because we had a computer. Now, with the AI era, lawyers are clamoring for it, right? I wouldn't have a job trying to convince them to use AI, right? But firms have to do that in a measured way. You can't just roll out everything and anything. And I think that search for the ROI and making sure you're doing that in a secure, measured way on the lawyer side is something that people are cautious about. So they're excited, but they're cautious of making sure they do it the right way in the right time frames.
Yeah. So how do you think this kind of plays out? What do the next couple of years look like in terms of AI's impact, both on the business and practice side?
Yeah. So I do think that we will see the same thing on the real true ROIs will first come on the business side. We talk to our folks that are in the general counsel's offices of the law firms, or folks who are doing lawyer innovation, and all of those things are so important to get right at the business level so that you can trust the processes and make those more efficient, give people the ability to do bigger, stronger, faster. And then and I think what that's going to lead to is the firm starting to have a culture of using machines to do work for them. And whether that's true AI or augmented AI, and then the lawyers are going to be able to sort of bring that into the practices. I think we're really close to the day when clients stop having an outside counsel guideline that says thou shalt not use artificial intelligence on my matters. And when we get there, the other thing that we've heard over the years, right? Everyone wanted the holy grail of alternative billing. And I think we're going to get there sooner with this AI revolution, because you're doing an end-to-end task, not necessarily a minute-by-minute kind of thing manually.
So you're saying the billable hour is dead?
Nah, thank you, Bobby. I do think that it'll be in the firm's best interest, which is always been the challenge, right? It was never in the firm's best interest to do task-based billing, because there was the fear that it was going to take them too long to do those tasks. And I think with AI, there's a real option that it's going to be in the firm's best interest to be able to value sell that work versus having to do it.
It seems inevitable. I mean, it really does seem, because it just billable hour, billing by the hour, billing by the minute, as you say, just doesn't make sense in the same way anymore. And especially, it's not even just the AI, but there's so much more emphasis now on workflow automation, on streamlining workflows, so you're not application switching and all of that. And as time becomes less a factor and knowledge becomes the greater factor, it just seems like that's where we're going to be going, right?
Well, and I think it's a great point. And I think as I think about even inside our own products, where we have this concept of zero entry, we want to stop people from having to type into the products and definitely not re-enter data. As lawyers start to push a button to generate 3 pages of content, yes, they're going to review it, human in the loop. They're going to make sure it's right and it's accurate and precedents are correct. But that's just a heck of a lot different sort of mentality of someone, whether it's a lawyer or someone else, is spending time typing 3 pages of content. And so I think we're gonna see it flip to being, this is the outcome I've given you, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, and make sure that I'm getting the value built for that, not just for my time.
Yeah. What else has got you excited these days, or what else are you thinking about these days?
Yeah. So as I think about this new agentic world, as we start to really plan for how we are going to augment not just the workflows, but actually give people the power to do something they've never been able to do before. And it's not because they didn't want to or didn't have the skills. It just was too time consuming, or they couldn't search 6,000 websites all at once, or they couldn't go through the dictionary and find that one smoking gun. That to me is going to be the game changer. When we can actually empower people to accomplish things that they just couldn't do manually because of the onerous nature of what they were doing.
Yeah, and how far are we away from that really being?
Yeah. So selfishly because we on the business side mostly.
You can talk about it, Deb.
Yeah,
that's okay.
right. That's right. Intap being on the business side, I think we're really close. Because there are many of our clients who did that RPA stuff years ago, right, where they were automating these things, and agentic is just sort of the next revolution of that, I think. And so I think within 12 to 18 months, we're going to see true assistants who are agents inside of products and inside of the Microsoft graph that people can tell, go do these things for me and bring me back the result. I think we're close.
Yeah. I take it from what you've described about your job, you spend a lot of time talking to customers. I don't know how much of your time you spend doing that, but it sounds like it's a big
100%.
100% of your time. Okay. And so, and obviously you're talking to Intap customers, but one of the things that's been really interesting to me, I think I've become more aware of it for some reason over the last year or so, because I've gone to a number of user conferences, is I kind of thought the cloud conversation was dead. And then I'm realizing it's nowhere near dead. And I'm kind of wondering what your perspective is on it.
So I had a session on Monday morning about the new cloud imperative. When we first did cloud, it was all about, you're not going to have a data center. You're going to save all this money. We're going to be able to provide you more updates quicker, and you're not going to have to install them. We're going to do that for you. And there are some folks who leaned into that. And there were some that said, I'm fine. I'm good over here. Now, as they think about how they're going to take advantage of especially agentic AI, that's just not an on-premises world. Right. It's just never going to be. And so that new imperative now is, okay, I didn't buy in when it was all about cost savings, but now in order for me to really enable my firm to do the things it needs to do with this latest version of technology, I've got to go to the cloud. And so we're working really hard to make sure that that is as smooth and seamless as possible. Not free, but less costly to be able to do those things. So our customers then are empowered to take advantage of the things that we're providing to them inside the products.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been hearing, is that the conversation is now pretty much exactly what you said. That if you want to be able to take advantage of these powerful new models, this powerful new technology, the only way to do it is to be in the cloud. You cannot do it in on-premises, and it does create, again, just what you just said, a new imperative for law firms to understand.
And one of the interesting things, I've had this conversation a few times, it's not just about having an application that is a SaaS-based application. It's about the data being in a cloud provider that can be accessible by multiple products in different ways, in different vectors. And that's a challenge for some folks because they've spent a lot of years making sure that their data was inside their four walls. Right. And they get very comfortable with that. Yeah. And so now they're going through a whole new re-engineering of thought, if you will, about how I can put that data in a place that's accessible and not lose sleep at night.
Yeah. And then the other point to that I often hear now is that as those firms start to think about the fact that they need to put their data into a different environment, they realize it hasn't been as pristine as they thought it was all along in the first place, and that there needs to be some cleaning up going on there.
Well, and it's about quality of data, 100%, right? There's never been a truer statement today that garbage in equals garbage out, right? AI cannot doesn't understand garbage data. It doesn't, and so it's just going to do what it does. But here's the other one that I've been hearing lately that so almost makes me shiver, honestly. Law firms talking about deleting work product from 10 years ago. We keep it forever. We never delete anything. But as soon as that AI sees something that's 10 years old, now you're going to get garbage out. Yeah. So you've got to either be able to filter it out or now there's people are talking about deleting it. It's like, oh, what a change when we kept things for 30 years. But now because the AI needs that pristine data, we got to think about it differently.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else catching your attention here or
You know,
the world at large?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I've been doing this 32 years, right? So I've got some gray hair to prove it. What I love about
I've outgrayed you a while ago.
what I love about this conference is I'm seeing the next generation of legal technologists, and they are some super smart people, and their energy and their curiosity has just got me excited for what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
As I think about leaving, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years from now, I just think that this new generation is really going to take the baton and do some great things going forward.
Yeah. Have you been down the startup
I did.
alley over here?
Yeah, it's Adventures Alley over there, right? Or an Inventors Alley over there. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I run a startup competition at ABA Tech Show.
Right.
So some of them I've seen before.
before.
Some of them have been in my thing.
Yeah.
But just to go over there and talk, and like you say, I mean, the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm they bring, and some of them, 22 years old over there who like raising money and building businesses. So that's an exciting thing.
Well, one of the challenges we had back in the day, 32 years ago, was we always wanted a seat at the table, right? To make sure that the technology we were bringing to bear met a business need. These new generation of folks come at from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Technology is just an enabler.
Yeah.
But they understand the business problems.
Yeah.
And they're coming at it from solving the business problems.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to just be dividend upon dividend as they go forward.
Yeah. Well, not to go down the old timer road, but I mean, it was much more difficult to get even a technology business started in those days. I mean, it took a lot of capital, took a lot of resources. There was not a lot of different technology. There were a few big technology providers, and others would come along sooner or later. But now it's just a whole different world in terms of getting started down.
Yeah, even the cost of buying software that helped you do development 30 years ago, right? That's a whole different world now.
Right. Yeah.
Publicly available code bases and code generators, and it's a totally different landscape for those folks. And I'm just super excited they're going to be able to do things faster and better than ever.
Yeah. Well, Brad, I don't know if they're going to pull the plug on us in a few minutes here, but anything else you wanted to talk about or chat
No,
about?
I would just encourage people as they think about what they see this week, whether it's from Intap or other providers, don't always judge a book by its cover. Think about your business challenges. Give all of the vendors a chance to address those business challenges in a direct way. Some of these booth conversations can be awesome, but sometimes they're really quick. Follow up with the ones that were of interest to you. Give us that chance to really show you how we can make a difference in your business in a direct way. And I think all the vendors would appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah. That's it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Great
Bob.
to talk to you, Brad.
Yeah, you too.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That does it for this episode of ILTACON Live. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for watching.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's Saturday night.
Mr. Hines, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Ted?
I'm doing great. We got a lot to talk about here, but before we jump in, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where you do it?
Yep. Conan Hines, Director of Practice Innovation at Fried Frank, based in New York.
And you're a longtime law firm guy, correct?
Yes, I've been since law school. I've been in law firms for 17 of my 19 years in the profession. So, yes,
Long time.
I'm pretty much very comfortable in the law firm setting.
You're a vet. You're a vet. So I started my journey about that time, 2008, which was a hell of a time to quit your day job and start a company, but especially one that caters to law firms, because you remember how difficult a period that was.
Is that not still difficult today?
It's less difficult. Like
Okay.
people
It's good.
will write checks. It was like a different story in 08, 09.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah. But so we got a lot to talk about. Why don't we start with the ever-present AI topic?
Why not? No one's really talking about it.
I know.
so-
What it's not. I mean, all you do is just take a glance and you see AI in just about every booth.
Yeah.
So you and I discussed models and whether or not they've plateaued. You know, we just had GPT-5 release. We may even need to talk about, have they gone backwards with GPT-5? I've kicked the tires on it. I've got kind of mixed feelings. I miss having the ability to like select a reasoning model and you know, picking my poison, so to speak. But like, what's your take on the frontier, and do you feel like we've plateaued, or are the scaling laws still in effect? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it has plateaued. I'm not saying there won't be incremental improvements or there aren't reasons to still continue to do large language model training. But I think we saw with GPT-5, even if you are pro GPT-5, I don't think anybody would say the jump from 4 to 5 was anywhere near the jump from 3.5 to 4, definitely not 3 to 4. So now we can talk about all the different numberings and all the different naming conventions that OpenAI uses. But what interests me there is that we can now start talking. I think it's actually a good thing. I think we want the models to plateau, because even with GPT-5, it breaks down a lot of the some frameworks that you may have built, and it can cause you to go back to the drawing board and rebuild your governance and some of the useful functionality that you had relied on. So something that's more stable. And let's not forget, this is still a wonderful tool. And I think we just get hung up on, and I hear vendors telling me, well, the models are just going to continue to get better. And I'm like, well, don't serve me that. Where are they going to get the data? I don't think it's coming from synthetic data to hit those sort of scaling levels. And but I think it's actually a really good thing, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Yeah. So we're getting a little bit of stability, and you know, you're not seeing the massive leaps like, you know, when O3 came out. I mean, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
Absolute game changer.
Sure.
Have you kicked the tires at all on any of the Chinese models like DeepSeek and now Kimi? Have you seen?
I haven't seen Kimi yet.
Kimi is really interesting, and they were kind of a dark horse. I think that maybe that's Alibaba's model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've kicked the tires on it. Obviously, you can't put anything remotely sensitive there, but man, it really hums. And when you think about all of the export controls that are in place that seem to be only ramping up, like the fact that they have been able to keep pace, like R1 blew everybody's mind. And
Yeah.
I feel like really kind of, it was a little bit of a gut check for
Totally.
the U.S. frontier companies.
It kind of cut against the narrative of we need to have a lot of public investment into massive data centers, which I am not. I'm a bit skeptical of. I think they're. I mean, China's not getting the high-end GPUs, and they have other limitations. And yes, they're coming out with these impressive models. And yeah, you don't want to put data in them online, but you can host DeepSeek in your own tenant if you wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah, and you still have these models are trained and have a tone that aligns with whoever created them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you go in and ask about Tiananmen Square and DeepSeek, you get a different answer.
You're going to get a very different answer.
But it's true here in the U.S. too. I mean,
Absolutely.
look at Grok, right? I mean, what was the Hitler character?
Yeah.
Remember that was like, not that was intentionally put in there, but you know, and I think we're going to get even more of that. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the Trump's AI action plan, but they talk about how what these things should and shouldn't do, and they're prescriptive. And it's like makes you step back and go, all right, well, who's making the decisions? Even if you're support this administration, there's going to be a new administration potentially in 4, definitely 8 years. Are we going to let those people dictate what the tone and what these models can and can't say? It seems like we're walking into a minefield.
Aren't we just outsourcing it to big tech? I think we're just going to let big tech decide and run it, which I don't know what's worse, big tech or big government running these things. We're kind of in a tough place, and really what it should be, a society should be dictating. And I think you have to have, you can't just say, oh, I like this model and this is what I'm going to use, especially as a lot of people use it for as a news source, as a research source. So you really might need to run it a DeepSeek versus an OpenAI versus a Grok. And you'll get 3, I think, quite different answers on some of these more polarizing questions.
Totally. Yeah. And they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Like I kind of rotate between 4. It's ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Grok.
Yep.
And just Grok recently, since Grok 4 came out. And man, it is impressive how quickly Google and XAI have closed the gap. Like they were both way behind, and out of nowhere, they are on par with OpenAI and Claude. Would you agree?
Gemini, yeah, I think Gemini has gotten in, and it kind of makes sense. It's really, not, I guess, unsurprising to see Google make that stride. They were kind of the laughing stock.
They were. Bard was a joke.
Yeah, Bard was a joke. But if you really think about it, it all came from them anyway.
Yeah.
All this transformer technology, they have all the data, they have the software chops. I think it was inevitable. Although, you can contrast with that something up with Apple, and Apple's now the joke of the industry, way worse than Google ever was.
Microsoft's not far behind.
Yeah, I don't even know if Microsoft has anything.
Well, I just mean with Copilot.
Yeah.
You know my thoughts on Copilot.
I know your thoughts on Copilot, and I'm completely aligned with those. So I don't even know what else we can add to it there. And I was actually in a lunch right before this with one of the legal AI companies, and someone said, "Oh, your Word plugin's better than Copilot," and that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
Like the founder's like, "Yeah, that's not really saying much."
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that might be okay. I think have the foundational model companies do their thing, and sometimes that'll be wrapped up in a bigger company, and maybe sometimes not. But yeah, that's I think Gemini's on par. I love Claude. Claude's my favorite.
Yeah.
Of them.
Yeah, I really enjoy Claude too, especially for writing. It has a very it's less flowery. Like, GPT sometimes was overly verbose. I've heard it's gotten better with GPT-5, but I really like Claude for writing. In fact, for my podcast, how I do it is I have like a 30-minute meeting to plan out an agenda. I record it. I take the transcript. I upload it into a custom Claude project where I've trained it and have custom instructions on what I want my agendas to look like. And it gets me like 85%. I just make a couple tweaks.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So the thing I love most, and the reason that I keep my subscription active with Anthropic, it's all the research that they're doing and how transparent they are with, like, I don't know if you heard the story, you probably did, about how they tested it with threatening to turn it off, and it like found some emails from a CEO and like it blackmailed
Yeah,
to stay
I
alive.
think it was a controlled hack or
Yes.
something. But yes, it was when it was threatened. It was, and I mean, that's kind of the genesis of Anthropic, right? Anthropic spun out of what was perceived to be quite a corrupt and nefarious operation being run over at OpenAI. And I'm telling you right now, I'm in the middle of this book, Empire of AI. Have you read it
No.
yet? By Karen Howell. It's blowing my mind. You've
Really?
got to read it. It just came out in May, and it's basically a lot of it's about the story and the last 10 years of OpenAI and its history, and then just the whole AI industry and how it evolved and how actually, I mean, we could go down to the rabbit hole here, and I don't even want to just talk about the book, but just how artificial intelligence itself, having the word intelligence, forked AI into a totally different direction than what it was named before, which was like autonoma something, and it was not sexy. And then this marketing piece comes on, and it's sort of taken off from there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about like innovation in legal, which legal innovation has historically been a little bit of an oxymoron. I saw an interesting article. I talked about it with Zach Posner on here yesterday. It was from a VC fund, and they said they were giving their prediction on where the market's going, and they had a hilarious metaphor. They said if Rip Van Winkle woke up, the only thing he'd recognize is a law firm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like legal innovation, and has been like jumbo shrimp and military intelligence, like, but now it's real. And I think ChatGPT a few years ago, it's been almost 3 years now, has really kind of changed law firms' perspective on how strategic tech is. Tell me about your thoughts on the process of building an innovation function in today's world.
Yeah. So there's no standard and there's no one size fits all, I think, for every law firm. So I can only speak to how I would do it, being sort of in this world for the last dozen years. We're trying to build a startup basically in the firm. And so that's how I look at it. And I'm trying to hire people. I have to write a job description and give them a title, but I'm not really looking for positions to fill. I'm looking for people with skills and ambition to join the cause, and people who can wear many hats, they can pivot, and they are are motivated, right, to seize this challenge. I think the tough thing in law firms is how, usually when you think of startups, you don't think of, mahogany wood paneling in the hallways. You think of something way cooler, with ping pong tables and the like. So, how do we get people excited? AI really is part of that, because the great thing about ChatGPT is it understands language. That's really all it does, actually. It's just language generation, and that's perfect for law firms and what we do. And it's always been, and it's still to some sense is still the case today, where you need to structure the data to get the most out of the AI. But like breaking down like how much manual effort you need to structure the data anymore is becoming, I think, lower and lower, more trivial, and where that's exciting. If you can actually maybe recruit an AI engineer over, because you're saying, hey, you're going to be able to work on this really interesting, high value stuff. And there is, law firms can compete, I think, on salary. Maybe not with some of the, money that Zuck is throwing around. Yeah. 250 million, I think, was the most recent hire. But I'll tell you what, it's there's a lot of people, I think, that are coming out with data science degrees and with these computer science degrees and have the chops. It's now just giving them a purpose. And so that's kind of how I'm trying to think of it. People first, building a vision, and then follow with the tech and deployments.
So what about empowerment? Like, that's been one of the challenges with innovation. I talked about it on a previous episode, but I did an analysis of the ILTA roster in 2014 and how many titles had innovation
I
in them.
remember that.
There were 16. And then when I looked again 10 years later, there was like 330, 1,800% increase. Today, there's over 400. So massive growth in the innovation function. And then the Blickstein Group did a law department operation survey in December and asked law firm clients, do you agree that your law firm is your law firm innovative? Almost 2/3 either disagreed or strongly disagreed. So you've got 18x increase in innovation investment over the last 10 years, and 2/3 of the customers don't think we're innovative. Like, where's the disconnect there?
Well, it's the wrong term. Okay, so we're innovation teams, but I'm not an innovation team. It's practice enablement, something like that. Not as sexy. Innovation is what the clients pay for, and that's those are your top talent lawyers. The lawyers innovate. They come up. They handle our firm very complex transactions, novel fact patterns, multi-party negotiations, sophisticated tax approaches, right? I mean, this is innovation. We are constantly creating new legal products. We don't really talk about it that way. And so in our bubble, we're innovating, but really we're just modernizing and empowering what the actual innovation we do, and because that's how you make money. Most companies, that's kind of how you make money, is you innovate, and people find there's a market for that, and people assign a value to that, and then they pay you for it until it gets commoditized, or someone can do it better, or another technology completely blows up that idea. You know, Netflix blows up Blockbuster or something.
So you had a quote. I think you said all software is tech, but not all tech is software. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the roots of the word technology, I mean, it's really about, there's a couple different definitions, but mostly it's a scientific process to do or a scientific approach to doing process. And there's a lot of technology that we can do that's not necessarily software. And I think we lose that thread. I think software and technology today is synonymous with each other. And it was kind of co-opted, right, by big tech. And that, to me, is we talk, I think it's important, like, what does AI mean to you? What does technology mean to you? And I think we just kind of all assume that we all know and we're all talking in the same way. But I think words, they have meanings for a reason, and we should stick to those meanings. I mean, technically, the word agentic is not a real word. No. It's not in the dictionary. It's agentive would actually be the word, but that doesn't pop as much, right? I'm not saying I have a problem with that, but I'm just saying, like, technology is just applying science to a business process. And, if you legal project management is a technology, and there's nothing digital or code-based about it.
It's a great point. So how much time have you had to spend on the exhibit floor since you've been here?
Not as much as I wanted to. I'm going to do
Really?
more today, but I've been getting some nuggets from people.
You've been by the info dash booth, I hope, over there.
Yeah. They're always spamming me with it. No, of course.
Did you see our kicks? I got to show the camera.
Yeah,
the
well,
kicks.
I saw it on LinkedIn. I think Adam
had
posted, and then I saw Matt with them the other night. So no, very cool. We're working with InfoDash, so we think they're a very important part of the ecosystem.
Have you seen any other interesting? And this doesn't necessarily have to be on the exhibit hall floor, but any other interesting technologies, maybe not necessarily company names, but things that either vendors or law firms are doing with technology since you've been here?
Yeah, this is a running theme this year, is that the overlap in functionality with a lot of the tools is becoming more and more prominent. It's making it very difficult for people to make decisions, or it might cause people to delay those decisions. And timing is, I think, the most interesting thing is when you go in on something. But now, yeah, these products are swallowing up features of the other and vice versa. So that to me is really interesting. I think I saw some, I like, like what the Deep Judge people are doing. And I've seen some really cool, like auto taxonomy, like on the fly, this isn't released. I hope I'm not revealing anything top secret, but it was really pretty badass.
Well, that's a huge gap for law firms is lawyers profiling documents doesn't always happen in the DMS. So
yeah,
they need some help.
Exactly. And they're asking for it. And I sit in those KM meetings sometimes. It's like, how are we going to title a document and what are our doc types and what class? It's like, okay, well, when is AI going to figure this out? Well, it's pretty much here.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, hey, I know how full your dance card probably is at ILTACON, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us today.
Absolutely, Ted. Thanks for having me.
All right. Cool, man. Mr. Dave Bolin, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Ted. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to the inaugural ILTACON Live podcast booth. It's the first year that we've done this together.
I love it.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel very honored, very special. So,
Well, awesome.
Glad to be a part of it. This is great.
We're honored to have you. Yeah, we did it on our own last year, and we planned on doing it at our booth, and we had a 9:00 scheduled podcast, and the exhibit hall wasn't open, so we had to go get a table, and so we were like, you know what, let's partner with ILTA this year. They can obviously bring lots of production,
Right.
and they'll let us in,
Right.
you know?
That's where being a startup really helps because you're very, pragmatic. You're like, hey, just grab a table and, get this going.
You make it work, man. Toothpicks and bubble gum if you gotta do it. You know what's funny is one of our core values at InfoDash is simplify and go.
Yeah.
And we have some sub bullets under that. One of them is have a bias towards action. And where we got that was we have had developers work for us throughout the years who are violin makers, 8 levels of abstraction, and and it's sometimes you got to build a doghouse.
Yeah.
But if you ask a violin maker to build a doghouse, they don't want to do it.
No, exactly. I love that though, because I think even more so than maybe ever before, simplify is going to be what we're all going to be thinking about. I mean, we have to. And
Totally.
So I love that. And then just have a bias toward action. I mean, that's something that we really try to emphasize on my team.
Mhm.
Do what you say you're going to do, deliver, do it on time, do it on budget, and then move to the next one.
Yeah.
And the whole iteration of, if like at first let's start with a little doghouse here.
Yep.
And then we'll build from there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, when you get like really talented engineers in a room, sometimes they want to over engineer stuff, and sometimes that doesn't serve the client.
Right.
So we got to reel it in. So yeah, we dig into that deep when we're like interviewing people, when we do our evaluations, and it goes a long way. And we go a long way back with you guys.
We do.
Yeah. So Ogletree, cool story. Ogletree was really the first InfoDash customer, and this is
Did we qualify as InfoDash, or were we under doing business as?
Yeah, no, you're right. We were AcroWire, and the InfoDash didn't even exist. It was like the gadget framework, remember?
Yeah.
But OD took a chance on us, and you guys liked what we had as a starting point. And then we were able to work with a real law firm with real requirements and real users.
Yeah.
And that whole simplify and go thing, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Throw some stuff in front of users, see how they respond to it, take their feedback, make improvements, and do that over and over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a great partnership.
It
You
really
were our
has.
first intranet customer. You're our second extranet customer.
Yeah. We're excited about that too.
Yeah. And, it's so our first extranet customer was Eversheds,
Right.
and Katrina, who I have a long relationship with, and it requires trust.
Yeah.
Right. Like she trusted me.
Yeah.
And she had a very tight deadline to get off HiQ.
Right.
And it was like, lights are going off. This has got to get done. So we deployed. I was attending stand-ups for like the last 6 weeks of the project every day.
Wow.
With her team. And, we didn't get everything right because we were still learning as we were
Well,
going.
you're moving that fast, right? Yeah.
We were deploying code like twice a day. Yeah, that's how fast we were moving.
Yeah.
But when you have a good relationship and you have trust, so we're a team of about 50 now.
Yeah.
We had 12 just working on that one project.
Wow.
So it's like you get into the trenches, with your partners and your customers, and you just do what you got to. You lock arms. You guys have that. Some people, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like some people just want to sit back and wait till the bumps are ironed out.
Right. Right.
And then some people like to get their hands dirty and say, "Hey, I want to help shape this."
Exactly. I think that's our perspective. And I love that you called out trust, because I think that's really what makes our relationship, our partnership so meaningful, and the desire to repeat and to do more. When you feel like you're all one team, It's not an us them. That knowing that our concerns are your concerns, that you understand the pressures, the timing, there's even sequencing, right? Like we really, we got to do this part first, and get that over the line here, and then we can take step 2. And it's really, it's like looking in the mirror for us from our perspective when we work with you guys. So it's been a great partnership.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. So you've been you started off as CKO, now CKIO, right? You started with OD when?
5 years ago.
Okay.
So June of 20,
Wow.
which was an interesting time to not only join a new organization, but join a new industry. So I didn't come from the legal side of things. And so all that was when the nation was on shutdown. Everything was, on Teams or Zoom or whatever you could find to work.
Gutter.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was interesting time to have a lot of new things, but it was also I was accustomed to working in that kind of remote environment and leveraging the technology for those, either working with my team or with stakeholders or customers, things like that. So it wasn't new, but it was just a very unique experience.
Yeah, and so you came from public accounting.
That's right.
Right. You and our COO worked at the same firm. What? So let's double click into that a little bit. Like how are things different? What have you been able to take from your learnings in another industry and apply in legal?
Yeah, I think at the highest level, it's all professional services, right? So client is the most important thing, and the second most important thing are clients, and then the third, and so there's this laser focus on meeting, exceeding the client's needs, which is a great culture to be a part of, because it keeps you focused, keeps the main thing, and it provides a context that you can kind of work from there. The challenges of that are just the limitations of time to hey, I'm trying to help, or how can we help? And it's like, oh, I don't have time to talk about that because I'm focused on my client's needs. Or you send communications, but they're not read because they're focused on the client needs. And so it is a kind of a double-edged sword there in many ways. And so I see that consistency. Also, I mean, if you back up even more, you look at the same ownership model.
Yes,
so
the partnership model.
I've only worked in partnerships.
Wow.
And so it's different.
Yeah.
And anytime I've hired people that have not had that, it's a long learning curve, and the need to appreciate the importance of collaboration and consensus building and go slow to go fast. You got to make a lot of investments in those relationships to then be able to move forward and move quickly.
Yeah. And one of your partners happens to live in St. Louis.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome. So him and I go to breakfast about once a quarter, and man, I learned so much from him. We talk about, I tell him about all the new tech that I'm seeing, and kind of he fills me in on the law firm side. Like I have, and Rodney and I have talked about this. It's like the partnership model as it exists in legal is even more unique than it is in accounting, and at least the way I see it. And the reason is there's some key differences. First of all, scale. Like the big four are the smallest KPMG at 40 billion in revenue. Deloitte's 80 billion. Right. The biggest law firm is 8 billion, which is Kirkland and Ellis, and they're an outlier.
Yeah.
So, much more scale in public accounting. And then also another key difference is that in the accounting, consulting, advisory world, you can't take your business with you. Right. There's typically non-competes. Like in the law firm world, the ABA rules dictate that you have to do what's in best interest of the client. Yeah. So if you're my lawyer and I've been working with you for 20 years and you go from firm A to firm B, the firm can't stand in the way of me following you. That's right. And that's a little different in the accounting world. So yeah, man, that's like I'm I really question whether or not the current iteration of the partnership model is going to get us, especially with all the ABA rules like that, and also non-legal ownership, right?
Right.
If you're not a lawyer, you can't own anything in a law firm, right?
That's right.
So, and you were at Grant Thornton,
I was
right?
at Grant and then Deloitte.
Okay.
Spent a fair amount of time at Deloitte, and if you roll the clock back far enough, Arthur Anderson.
Oh wow.
Which is where I cut my teeth, and so grateful for the things that I learned there. Really rich culture, and actually got to work with a lot of those people at Grant Thornton. Actually, that had left, but once what happened to Anderson when they then many of them moved to Grant Thornton. So
yeah.
It's interesting. It's probably not the best analogy, but I think the public accounting feels like a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And to differentiate, maybe to make a stark differentiation, law firms feel a little bit more like a collection of independent sole practitioners in many ways. So it kind of, to your point, if I leave this firm, I take my book of business with me, and that can happen at at some of the big four, but less likely. Like you hire Deloitte,
right?
Yeah, and all that comes with, right?
Yeah, and and in terms of, there's much less fragmentation. So like the big four, and then like GT's like fifth, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a big gap there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of scale.
That's right.
In the law firm world, like you add up the entire AmLaw 100 revenue, it's 140 billion. That's like Deloitte and E&Y, right? And you got 100 law firms, so there's a tremendous amount of fragmentation. Which, I mean, I don't know if that's sustainable as we really start to deploy technology, and law firm inventory becomes less about people's hours and more about the tech that they have.
Yeah,
you agree?
I do. I mean, I try to keep it pretty simple. It's about value and delivering value. And so, and part of that equation is cost benefit. So how much am I paying and how much value am I getting? So I think that's going to continue to play out. Very much so.
And, I've seen tremendous growth. So, you guys have been clients of ours for about 7 years. And I mean, when we first started, I think all of KM was like 25 people, right?
Yeah.
How big if you're able to talk about it, how big are you guys now?
We just passed the 100 mark.
Oh my gosh.
So my last 5 years, you're right, we were less than 30 people when I got here. And then even just our scope of services is dramatically increased as well. And we actually, over 50% of the team is now our billers. So we've got a portion of our team that bill a good, like they have utilization goals, and they're doing direct client work for data analytics. And that's actually been one of our fastest growing areas. And so with my background in KM, that's been a very unique experience here, is to actually have a revenue generation component to our operating model.
That doesn't hurt. Like
no,
it's not just cost. Like you're actually bringing revenue. I don't know. Did you see? I had a LinkedIn post where I took the AmLaw 100 and measured profitability, and then I did a count on knowledge management and innovation resources at each of those firms. Yeah. And you know what? There was really no relationship between profitability and KM and I investment.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I think it's tricky. Like you can't just say, oh, okay, well, that investing more in KM doesn't lead to better bottom line performance. I don't think you can say that. I think there's things that have contributed to that, like innovation theater.
Yeah.
A lot in the beginning, a lot of innovation titles were out there, and there really wasn't a full commitment of the firm to change, like the hard stuff. Right.
Yeah.
The client engagement model, the internal firm compensation model, the pricing model, like those are hard changes.
Right.
But innovation sounds good and it's good for marketing. That has changed. Now firms are really digging in and saying, we because I don't think we have a choice, right?
Right.
I mean, technology is really forcing firms to change. You agree?
I do agree with that. Yeah, and I'm very fortunate, as you mentioned, Rodney. He and many of our leaders are very forward thinking. I mean, I learn a lot from Rodney every time I talk to him.
Yeah.
And he's a great shareholder at the firm, and likes to move fast.
Yeah.
So it puts us in a different position to be able to do that iterative approach. So let's make things real. Let's clearly articulate where the value is here, and then start moving things forward. But you will eventually bump into some of these big things that are going to have to be dealt with over time. So
totally. So, and we were talking a little bit before we went live, like labor and employment is one of the few areas of law where firms can only focus on that and scale to 1,000+ attorneys. Like, I don't see it very many places. You guys at OD have a very tight focus. Your labor, employment, and immigration.
that's right.
Is that right? And
Yeah.
you're what, 1,100 attorneys?
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing scale.
Yeah, we're up to 60 offices now. And so even that is, and I think with the remote work, that number of offices is not felt as deep or as challenging, because I could be down the street in the same city but be remote, and so it's kind of changed the way we work and interact with one another. But those are a lot of unique instances of the firm in each office, and each one has its own little personality and unique aspects. So
yeah, and you got a great lead on the data analytics side with Tim Fox. Like,
yeah,
how important is that data analytics work to your overall remit?
Yeah, so we think of data analytics kind of in two buckets. So we got one that's really coming alongside our litigation and counseling services, and so it's dealing with the client data. I think where Tim has been able to really very strategically think through how do we just leverage data so that we get insights, that we can make better decisions, take better actions. And that could be client data, it could be our internal data, it could be free data, public data, it could be purchase data. But how do you find those intersections that you bring all that together to tell a story, to be able to make decisions from those things? So it's been really helpful, and the data ties right into all the opportunities to innovate. It's got to be organized, it's got to be structured, and so then being able to take advantage of some of these advanced technologies that are available, we're well positioned to be able to do that.
I have a theory about where the industry's going and how firms are going to differentiate themselves in the future. And I think it's going to be with data, because it's historically what has differentiated law firms is the brand has played a huge role.
Yeah.
Right. And the brand is really supported by the people, right? The people who've had the big wins, got the big wins on the board, who've had very successful outcomes. But what has really kind of taken a back seat historically is all that institutional wisdom, knowledge, and data that the law firm has accumulated.
Right.
We haven't really done a good job as an industry leveraging that to differentiate ourselves, because our people and our brand has really been at the forefront. But as we start to get tech-enabled legal service delivery, how firm A differentiates itself from firm B. It's not going to be by buying one of these tools out here, because your competitors can go do that.
Right.
But having access to data and having tech that leverages that data, you're the only person with your data. Right. So is that do you see that as a differentiating factor in the future as you guys build out your tech platform?
and it's not only having the data, it's knowing what to do with the data. It's knowing what story to tell with the data. What questions are you trying to answer with the data? And so I think it's maybe coming from a consultative background, there's always that, what problem are we trying to solve? What question are we trying to answer? So you got to have the data. That's the baseline. And you're absolutely right. It's the differentiator. It's my data. It's no one else has that. And so, but then how do I really exploit that? How do I really make sense and deliver insights from that?
Yeah, I think firms like yourself that are very tightly focused are at a real advantage because you're so focused. You know your data inside and out, right? And you can make predictions. You based on past precedent, outcomes. So I think you guys are in a good position. All right, last question.
Yeah.
What is your biggest challenge that you're tackling right now?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'd use the word challenge, but I'd say our strongest area of focus. So it is addressing a challenge. Is awareness and adoption. It's improving engagement, and it's kind of back to what we were saying earlier. It's like when you've got your user base or all your stakeholders are so focused on the client, there's so little bandwidth to work together. And so there is I don't think there's any one silver bullet on how do you improve awareness and adoption. And even conversations with Rodney, it's like, so maybe these aren't everybody's definition of the terms, but awareness is like, it exists. We have this tool, we have this capability, we provide this service. Adoption being, here's the technical, how do I use it? So it exists, here's how you use it. But then taking it to that next level of really integrating it into our attorneys' practice. So really trying to take them, really all of our people through a very thoughtful way to go from not only, I know it exists, I know technically how to use it, but then how do I actually integrate it into my practice? And so it's been a big focus discussion. We had there was a board meeting where we had this conversation, and how do we continue to improve that? And it's evergreen. I mean, I don't know that there's any point where you're like, well, we don't need to do that anymore. Plant the flag. We're good.
Yeah.
So it's constant, and it's, again, I don't think there's any one way to do it. So how do you get creative? How do you send the message and repeat the message, but slightly different? And how do you not be annoying in the process? And then how do you engage people to get more ideas? Why did this resonate with you? What was it? And then, boy, it'd be great if you did it this way. And being able to be flexible and agile enough to begin trying something new and how we address that.
Maybe that'll be a core value. Don't be annoying. Right? All right, Dave, it was a pleasure having you on.
Hey,
man.
Thank you, Ted. It's great to see you, and I really appreciate the time.
All right, good stuff.
Thank you.
Easy peasy. Nikki Black, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good. Good. How you doing?
Doing good. So you and I have known each other for a long time,
Yeah.
but for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us quickly who you are, what you do, and where you do it?
My name is Nikki Black. I am an attorney, and I'm the principal legal insight strategist at the FinnaPay parent company of My Case, CasePeer, LawPay, and DocketWise. And I'm also a legal tech journalist, so I'm the bridge between lawyers and technology. Externally, I educate lawyers about tech, and internally, I provide insights across the business to help the technologists to understand lawyers in the legal profession.
And that's how you and I met. You wrote a book, Cloud Computing for Lawyers.
Yeah.
What year was that? 2012?
It was published in 2012, yeah.
2012. And we were still finding our way into the legal industry. And you live in Rochester.
I do.
And my wife lives in Rochester. So
Yeah.
we came up, met you for a
At
coffee.
a Starbucks, I remember.
Yeah. I don't know, how 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And so my predecessor, today I'm with InfoDash. I started a company called AcroWire back then. And I came from Microsoft. So I used to work at Microsoft back in the day, started consulting on the side gig, started making more than the day job. So quit the day job, jumped out, started a company. It's a common story on how tech guys become
Yeah.
founders. And I read your book and I immediately thought, wow, I know how outdated the legal profession is. This is, again, over a decade ago. The cloud, they're going to jump on this, right? Like they don't want to manage servers. They don't love investing in technology.
Right.
So the cloud just makes perfect sense. And man, was I wrong about the timing around that.
I was too.
Yeah.
Thought it happened quicker than it did.
So it did not happen in big law in earnest really until post-COVID. So our product runs in M365 and Azure. We don't run on-prem at all. And that was a big bet. So we started development in 2018 and everybody was still on-prem then. But we're like, eventually they got to go to the cloud. And COVID hit, we were really close with the product. So we kind of doubled down and then we relaunched as InfoDash in January of 2022. And we were very lucky we caught that wave. So big law really started moving their Microsoft infrastructure to the cloud around then. 2021. Smaller law firms, and I know you were dialed into the ABA tech show world. I think did they go sooner to the cloud?
They were starting to, but the pandemic's really what pushed everyone into it, I think. I mean, that was the sort of the accelerant. And in a lot of ways, forced them into the cloud out of necessity. And then I feel like it made them more receptive to tech once they realized the value of the cloud. And that in turn kind of primed them to be ready for sort of generative AI, the tidal wave of that. So it was sort of an interesting series of events that kind of got us where we are today in terms of receptiveness to tech.
So your book was, again, you were early to the party. I was too. I remember in 2014, I did like 24 roadshows in different cities through ILTA talking about SharePoint Online. It was called Office 365 back then. And it was if I'd have done that 10 years later, it would have been better. What about your book? Did your book inspire or motivate folks on the big end, small end, middle end in legal to look at cloud sooner, or did that kind of take its own path?
Well, when the book came out in 2012, I feel like it almost didn't get published because it was published by the ABA's Law Practice Division, and I previously co-authored Social Media for Lawyers with Carolyn Elephant. That was published in 2010, and I pitched the idea of this book to my editor at the time, and it was approved and the contract was signed, and I wrote the book, and the approval of that book in terms of the copy took like 4 times as long as it did for us to get the social media book. It was peer edited so many times. And in retrospect, I think it had a lot to do with the fact that there were still a lot of people that banked their business on on-premises solutions. And the cloud was a threat to the way that they did business. And I think that there was a lot of hesitancy to accept the cloud. There was a lot of fear mongering that it wasn't secure.
And I think that the idea that a book would come out that would educate and encourage lawyers to use the cloud made a lot of people nervous. So it really I was surprised it actually got published because I felt like it wasn't going to. And 2012 was still pretty early in terms of legal tech and the cloud. And I think that book, it had a shelf life, I would say, of about 3 years because tech changes quickly. And I think it really did help a lot. And it also made me more recognizable. And I was asked to speak a lot about the cloud. So I was also able to help lawyers understand how to use the cloud. But, for years, the cloud usage, according to multiple surveys, kind of capped at about 35% going into COVID. So kind of, I want to say about 2015 or 16, it kind of got around 31, and then it got up to about 35, and then COVID hit. And post-COVID, it was up to like 54%, almost like, 2021, early 2022, and it's just accelerated from there, like you were talking about, to, at this point, I would say it's probably about 78, it should be higher. It's 80% probably that know that they're using it. I mean, everyone's using it and they don't realize it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, there are still some areas of resistance or holdout, and I don't think law firms are resisting anymore, but vendors haven't really been ready. Look at like practice management, right? Like the financial systems, roughly a third are in the cloud. Document management was on-prem until 2 years ago. They're really making a big push. On the iManage side, NetDocs has always been in the cloud, obviously. But some of this is on the vendors. The vendors weren't ready. It wasn't always or just the law firms.
Well, and that's where I think that small law really did lead the way with the cloud because my case was founded in 2010. The company's LawPay, which is payment processing, has been around since before. I think we celebrated our 20th anniversary of LawPay. So LawPay has been around forever, and that's essentially online payment processing, right? And then the companies that are also now part of Affinipay's umbrella, CasePeer and DocuWise, are also practice management in the cloud for immigration attorneys and personal injury attorneys. So, these tools have been around for a long time, targeted primarily towards solo and small firms. LawPay has, I think, it's either 40 or 60% of the AmLaw 200. So they're a little bit different. So they're definitely have sort of penetrated that larger firm market. But across the board, primarily it's smaller firms and solos, and they're more able to pivot, right? And when you're a small firm, you have more incentive, especially as a solo, just starting, to move right into the cloud because it's more cost effective. You have this robust software that's immediately available to you and helps you run your firm. Oftentimes reducing the need for an admin lift or an admin hire initially. So the small law software tools were already out there. It was the large law firms and it's the mid-size that I think are the most resistant to tech. The large law has IT and staff that in-staff IT that ultimately push them into the cloud, and they're more run like a business. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see how the different segments of the market and the different segments of the vendors that serve those markets have pivoted.
Yeah, and back to the client side, there have been OCGs that have prevented law firms from entering in the cloud, especially the firms that cater towards the highly regulated industries like financial services. They flat out prohibited their data from law firms putting their data in the cloud.
Well, what's interesting though is I don't know if this is, a lot of people don't seem to be aware of this, but the SharePoint on-premise SharePoint breach that's occurring right now, it's pretty unbelievable what's happening with that. And I'm personally impacted by this in a way. It wasn't that particular breach, but a couple months before, my accountant was it's a regional firm in New York. Their files were breached, and it was all of the organizational folders. Those folders that you provide them with all the supporting documents. That's what was breached. So that's a lot of financial information that's really confidential and secure. And so, but that same thing is now happening because of this more large-scale breach. It's only on-prem SharePoint, and it's Chinese hackers are breaching it. It still hasn't been, last I knew, fixed.
So they've had two patches. First patch didn't work. The last patch, last I heard, did, but they said that about the first fix as well. Yeah, so it is crazy to me that, so we only run in SharePoint Online. The last on-prem version of SharePoint was 2019. There is no next on-prem version. It's done. It's It's already out of mainstream support as of last January, and it's end of life next July. So if there is another hole, Microsoft's not going to patch it after next July. So I'm like out there going, hey, you need to move to SharePoint Online, even if you don't use InfoDash. You have to get off-prem, and it takes time. You have to pick a vendor to help you. You have to create a plan around your migration. You should be starting now, not next quarter, definitely not next year, but you need to start thinking about that now.
Yeah, the number of businesses and governmental agencies that were impacted by that, it was like, if I recall, like 300 or 400 businesses. And some of the governmental agencies included like, one of them was like the nuclear something, I can't remember. It was like the Office of Nuclear something. Like it was not a good thing. And it was pretty unbelievable to me because I've been saying for years that the cloud is more secure at this point than on-prem solutions because of all those, because of they're not supported, because of all the unpatched vulnerabilities, and because people don't have people on staff to know how to deal with it anymore.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that always blew my mind that OCGs would mandate that a firm not put their stuff in Microsoft's hands as opposed to a law firm's hands, right? Who's going to be better at locking that down, Microsoft or your law firm IT department? It's going to be Microsoft.
Right. And Amazon and, Google, and like Amazon makes their money from the cloud storage, not from their consumer, website. That's not where their money actually comes from. It comes from the cloud storage solutions they provide to businesses all across the country and the world. And so I think people don't necessarily realize that. But I mean, the cloud is, nothing's 100% secure, but it's far more secure than any on-prem solution for the vast majority of businesses.
Totally. What about how are you seeing similar patterns with AI in terms of adoption? Like how do you see AI adoption across large, mid, and small law? Is it evenly distributed? Is one size or one end of the market have better or faster adoption than another?
Well, so I'm glad you asked that. At Affinipay, we have a legal industry report that's been published annually. I think this is our 4th year, and I'm the author of that report. And what it does is it tackles sort of trending issues, and then also understanding how lawyers are using different kinds of software and the benefits that provides them. And obviously, last year and this year, the big issue you really want to do deep dives into is generative AI. And this year we parsed it by practice area, the data, and by firm size as well, depending on the different parts of the report that we were looking at and where I thought the most interesting disparate results would be across those different categories. And with generative AI, what has happened is just as the tech is accelerating at a sort of unprecedented rate, so too is the adoption compared to what we've seen in the past in legal, right? It's still not what you would think it would be. So this year, it was 31% of the respondents, and we had almost 2,900 respondents across firms of all sizes, more in the smaller and mid-size than the large. And 31% of the respondents said that they individually were using generative AI at work, in the practice of law or whatever their workflows were within a law firm or legal organization, compared to up from 27% last year. And then for law firms, it was, I think it was 20. It was up. It was down 3% from last year, and I think it was 27 down to 24, if I recall correctly. And I think that was primarily because law firms are entering into one-year contracts to try and see what fits, and they're trying to figure out what's going to work best, and the tech is adopting so quickly or changing so quickly. But what is interesting about that is, so generative AI has been around since 2022 is when it was initially, released, ChatGPT. But really, 2023 is when 3.5 came out, and that's when you saw the acceleration. So you're talking 2 years at the time that we took this data. So in that time frame, adoption had increased to almost a third, and up 4% from the year before individually. And that's where we sat with the cloud at about 30% from like 2015 to 2020, right? And it took us forever because the cloud had been out long before 2012.
The 90s.
Yeah, or before 2015. It had been around a long time.
Yeah.
So the adoption has been much faster. And I think that this year you're just going to see probably double by next year. And in terms of firm sizes, definitely the larger law firms are investing in it heavily, and solos, and then smalls, and then I would say mid-size. But there's definitely interest across the different segments for sure.
What do you think about? So I give a lot of thought to the future and where Big Law 2.0 specifically is going to land, because they're our customers. I am solely dependent upon large law firms for revenue. So I think about where things are going to land quite a bit. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on, the law firm world is extremely fragmented. The top 5 law firms control 6% of total revenue, compared with the big 4 in accounting that have like 90+% of the audit work of all publicly traded companies. So huge difference in dynamics there. But I'm wondering, big, mid, small, how does Gen AI level the playing field and maybe enable challenger firms to really make a play that they may not have had previously?
Well, so tech in general has helped level the playing field, including like the cloud. Generative AI, just like everything else related to generative AI, does it more, right? It levels the playing field significantly more than the tech that preceded it. I think that it has the potential, and I've talked to lawyers, it has the potential to significantly do this for the smaller firms, like the boutique firms that spin off from large law, or just smaller firms in general, and also bridging that access to justice. So a couple of examples. I write a ton in the space, and so people email me about my articles. And after one of my generative AI articles, I received an email from a guy who's primarily takes on assigned counsel work. He's a strict solo, like no employees. And he said that because of generative AI, he's able to work so much more efficiently on behalf of his clients, and he can take on a lot more assigned counsel cases than he could before. So it has essentially expanded his practice, and because he's taken on assigned counsels, expanded access to justice, right? And then when it comes to small firms, I think what you're going to see, and this is where the pricing dynamic comes into play, especially these boutique firms that spin off from big law. If they have worked in a large law firm, they understand the pricing structure, they understand how much they made billing hourly for all of these complex cases. So when they spin off, first of all, generative AI helps them be more efficient, and so that they can do more for their clients with less resources, right? I mean, that's essentially what Gen AI does. But the other really interesting part of it is the financial piece, meaning if you have generative AI applied to your practice management or billing software, so when the tools that your firm's already using for practice management with billing included, or just billing software, once you have tools in there that will allow you to take all of that data, all of your law firm's billing data for past cases, and query it as you can, like conversationally with generative AI, and ask it, take a look at all of the cases we've handled that, like this one that we're about to take on, and analyze how much did we charge, what was our profit, how long did it take for the case to come to resolution, and then predict for me what would be a reasonable and profitable competitive fee, flat fee, or some alternative fee structure that we can apply to this case that can undercut our large firm competitors, that will make them want to hire us. And it's also more client friendly. They want to know what they're going to spend rather than have to deal with all this billable hour BS, that makes them feel like just an endless bucket of money is they're hemorrhaging cash to this law firm. So not only is it going to help them be more efficient and provide better service, it's going to also allow them, as the software develops and the AI becomes more sophisticated within those systems, actually predict competitive pricing that's also going to be profitable and help them be more competitive in the marketplace overall. So it's a really interesting time in terms of that.
I love it. It's a fun time to be associated with the industry. Like, there's a ton of change, and change makes people uncomfortable, but you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's the reality.
The best you can.
Well, all right. Just last question before we go. How do people find out more about your work, what you're writing about, and so forth?
Probably the best place is to follow me on LinkedIn. I will share my articles as I write them, and I also have a newsletter called Legal Tech Reality Check that I launched in mid-November that has over 27,000 subscribers, which had I known that those subscribers would be made public, maybe I would have thought twice about launching it. but I didn't think about that. So fortunately, I actually got subscribers. It'd be kind of sad if I had like a couple hundred right now. But so that's a great place to follow too, because in addition to some rounding up the articles I've written or the podcasts I've been on over the past week, I also highlight a lot of AI news and legal tech news in a very humorous way. If I may say so myself. People tell me that they think it's really funny. And also some industry news. So like usually I cover 3 or 4 big announcements from the industry. So it's just a great place to check in and get some, news highlights every week as well.
I'm a subscriber, and we got to get you on the Legal Innovation Spotlight podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be here.
We good?
I should talk about the panel session rather than because we could talk about so many other things. Okay.
Hello and welcome to ILTACON live from the Gaylord in Washington, D.C., or at least what kind of posits itself as Washington, D.C. in Maryland. But I'm here with Priya Lele, who is an amazing person doing amazing things. You've done so much, including things like all of your She Breaks the Law, which I'm going to want to hear more about. But why don't you tell us a little bit, for those who don't know you, what do you do?
Sure. And thank you for having me, first of all. And it's my first time in DC, so I'm really excited. I'm Priya Lele. I am the co-founder and chair of She Breaks the Law, about which I'll speak in a minute, no doubt. But essentially, I'm one of the ILTA 2025 Influential Women in Legal Tech honorees this year. And I had a great fortune of being on a panel session with other honorees yesterday. And I just thought maybe, Damien, we could talk about that. I'm so excited. I'm still buzzing from that energy.
That's great. So obviously you were honored with this this award, so that you've done something good, and those other honorees have similarly done some great things. So why don't you say a little bit about maybe what you've done to be able to deserve the award, and then maybe talk about your co-panelists.
I'd love that. I'd love that. Thank you. So as I said, I'm a co-founder and chair of She Breaks the Law. And what it is, Damien, is it's a global network of women leaders and change makers in law, or hashtag lawbreakers, as we call ourselves.
Nice.
And we launched on International Women's Day 2019 with just 3. Today, we are a thriving community of 4,000 women from 50 plus countries. And that's not even the most exciting bit. You know what's the most exciting bit?
Please tell me.
What's unique about us is we literally connect the entire legal ecosystem. So we bring together women from all disciplines, all backgrounds, be that lawyers, legal technologists, legal ops professionals, entrepreneurs, everybody together. And the other thing is that we don't have organizational membership. What that means is if you're part of She Breaks the Law, you're a member, you represent yourself, which creates a unique, safe space for true collaboration and true partnerships without any corporate agendas or hierarchies.
That's
right?
great. And so breaking the law, that seems quite dangerous. What exactly does She Break the Law discuss?
Thank you. We break the law for the better. That's what it is. And what we really do is, so this originated with the desire to connect with more women like myself, which is I'm a reformed lawyer, recovering lawyer, whatever you want to call me, right? So
an awesome lawyer.
Thank you. Moved away from essentially practicing law into innovation and technology and the likes, right? And they back in the day and even today, I don't know very many networks that actually provide a space for women like me to come together and talk to each other and learn and share. So we created this network for women who believe in change and innovation and are doing those roles. And what we do is we organize ourselves under sort of 4 different streams, we call them. So for instance, She Connects is our network itself. And, we also organize networking events. She Shares, which is one that's very close to my heart, is about giving women the platform to come and share their stories. I say words and all, because it's one thing to have a glossy story. It's quite another to say, oh my God, she struggled to treat, or how it's not about, all the successes, but it's also about the failures and the struggles and the mentors and the what have you. And in fact, yesterday's panel was a little bit like our She Shares. And then the next one, which is really close to my heart as well, is She Develops, which is where we create, training and content and webinars to really help each other build new skills.
That's great. Is this a grassroots organization, or do you have that? How do you get 4,000 people under the same roof?
I'm glad you asked me. So we are on LinkedIn. That's our main thing in terms of 4,000. But we also have what I call hashtag lead lawbreakers in different cities to get together to do the in-person events. But we also do a lot online. And we are a non-for-profit registered in the UK.
Good.
So it's a combination of grassroots, and I'd be delighted to share a bit more about especially our recent research that we've done. And as I was saying earlier, Damien, when we were talking about this, Joy and I have been in fact speaking about it, and we've published a report, and it's joint collaboration with Next 100 Years of Women and Linklaters. And we basically did a first of its kind gender-lensed research into AI adoption in law, because we were seeing, and this was early 2024, so just a year and a bit after ChatGPT was unleashed, so to speak, on the world. And there was already very concerning studies coming through from the likes of, Berkeley and Harvard and what have you, to say that actually women across the board, universally, across professions, are less likely to use Gen AI than men.
Why would that be?
Exactly. So we were very curious to see, is this really true in our profession? And anecdotally, we were also seeing less women talk about it or write about it. There's only 22% of people working in AI or engineers actually women,
Sure.
and only 14% of AI authors are women. So we wanted to figure out what's happening in our profession in particular, what are the barriers, and then hopefully see how we could alleviate them, because the consequences you can only imagine, right? It's just we already have a huge leadership gap.
Sure. Well, Silicon Valley skews white male, right? Obviously, but so the developers I see is skewing that, and the fewer women. Are you saying users of AI are also fewer women? But I don't understand why the users would be, even though the developers.
Isn't it interesting and surprising? So some of the things that our research and also other industry research highlights is things like the good girl syndrome. Often women view use of AI or automation or other technologies as taking a shortcut.
Yeah.
And not being able to rely. The other interesting point is bias in the AI systems themselves. Nearly half of our respondents have personally experienced AI bias. I'll give you an example, Damien. One of our respondents, a junior lawyer in London, said that she had to specifically prompt the AI tool to write as a man to get the tone she wanted in her client communication.
Because the AI knew that she was a woman, and therefore was softening the language, perhaps?
Absolutely.
That's fascinating, because a big thing in Silicon Valley is saying we want to know you as a person because we want to customize it to you. And I suppose if the stereotype is that you are demure, you are passive, you are, this is all getting to know you perhaps isn't as good.
Indeed, and because this is based on historical biases, right? And so you could imagine in terms of, this could perhaps percolate into contract negotiation tactics. This could percolate into litigation tactics, and the implications of letting this happen or just standing by are just, unthinkable to us. So that's why we collaborated. We created that research. We wrote a report, and as I said, it's not just an academic interest, but we now want to actually do something around each of those things that we discovered. What were the reasons? Time inequality. Women often take on disproportionately larger responsibility for caregiving at home. And what, for instance, one of our respondents calls it a organizational dusting or non-promotional tasks at work. If there's a work party, guess who's organizing it?
Sure.
Right? These are hidden ways and biases in which actually all of us have less time, and especially if you're a lawyer and a busy attorney. But when you add these on, they become, real barriers. And then training. Again, organizations that are even making sure that AI is available to attorneys, it's one thing to have it available, and it's another to actually give the training and support you need.
Right.
So that's another thing. So that's why the She Develops webinars that I mentioned, we're going to focus on specifically the training needs that we've identified through our research.
That's fascinating. As a product guy, I think about how can I counteract that bias that you've just described? And you can imagine maybe for the listeners of this podcast, they could put as their system prompt to say something like, yes, I am a woman lawyer and I am persistent. And in litigation, I can be aggressive. And so one could imagine counteracting the biases that are implicit in the model in the system prompts.
But it needs education on both ends, right? And it also goes to, so for instance, one of the things we mentioned in our report, and also we just recently co-authored a chapter in a book as well. And the suggestions or recommendations we're making is it's not any one person's responsibility. It's every individual needs to take their own responsibility in terms of training, in terms of prompting the right way. Organizations and firms that are adopting need to make sure that we are empowering women. We're making sure they're actually at the decision-making stage, not just, users. And we also need to make sure that the vendors take the responsibility. They have a huge responsibility, particularly in relation to the inherent biases, right?
Sure.
Right from the data sets they're using through to the training teams, testing teams, and of course, testing AI biases regularly.
Yeah. Before this talk, you were discussing about how your co-panelists were saying amazing things. So why don't you say a little bit about what you were impressed with them?
Sure. And thank you for reminding, because obviously I can talk about AI and women till the cows come home. But so my fellow panelists and honorees include Gina Busser, who's the CEO of Traveling Coaches, Katie DeBoard, who's the Vice President, Product Strategy at Disco Law. Unfortunately, Katie couldn't join us yesterday because she's recovering from an injury and a surgery.
Oh, too bad.
But again, we gave a shout. I know how shameful, but her colleague mentioned her story, and also we gave a shout out to her to have prioritized personal care. which is extremely hard for most of us, and especially for women.
Yeah.
Michelle Mahoney, who's a Chief Innovation Officer at King & Wood Mallesons, and Nicola Shaver, you might know Nikki,
Yes, I do.
CEO and co-founder of
Nikki's
Legal
great.
Tech Hub.
Yeah.
Brilliant. They were all so amazing. As we were saying earlier, Damien, it was one of those panels where I was so enthralled in listening to what they had to share that I didn't say so many things I wanted to say myself, because I was just busy absorbing these beautiful women and their amazing stories.
Yeah.
And so it was an incredible experience. Here are my top takeaways from the session, if you will. First of all, although we each come from very different backgrounds and obviously had very different career stories, none of us have had a linear career, right? So non-linear career, I would say, is very much the norm. And all panelists had unexpected pivots, which turned out to be their strengths. So often, for instance, Michelle shared about how it was one of her mentors actually who pushed her into taking on a new responsibility. So seeing, potential in others others seeing potential in oneself before we see it.
Mhm.
The next one, which is kind of related to that, is imposter syndrome. All of us shared stories about feeling like an imposter all the time, and especially in roles like we do, or legal tech and change management, we're often trying to build the aircraft as we fly, which can be very scary. So imposter syndrome is common. Related to that, and all of us shared some tips around, how practice builds confidence. So for instance, Gina shared this amazing thought around Brené Brown's talk about how discomfort really only lasts for 8 seconds. And if you really can hold your breath for 8 seconds, it's gone. But we often don't realize it, right?
Sure.
And then authenticity matters, obviously. So I love that, because obviously I love to be authentic. And finally, here's the interesting bit. We spoke a lot about AI, obviously, and the future of AI, the leadership, and how women's skills, actually the inherent skills and qualities that we have as women and women leaders, possibly are more suitable and aligned with the change management that goes with it, and the technology's potential. And so when I shared the insights from the AI research, we were like, ironically, we should be doing even more about it, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, of course, the final tidbit and takeaway was, support networks are extremely crucial. And so find your tribe and advocates.
Mhm.
And we shared about how, particularly in legal technology, women and, ILTA is a great example, hugely, all volunteer-led organization. You can get brilliant mentors. So we were encouraging young women to go and find their mentors and, really find the tribe.
So I'd love to talk about how you mentor. That is, what are the better ways to mentor? If you're a woman who wants to mentor, or if you're a woman who needs to be mentored, what are the best ways to be able to connect with a mentor or a mentee?
That's such a great question. How I've, in my own career in life, Damien, I've often found that actually the organizationally supported mentoring schemes, they come from a good place,
Mhm.
but they're not often successful. At least they haven't been for me. Whereas I've often found mentorship in the oddest places, or in informal ways, in which the way I would suggest is, if you are on LinkedIn, which most people are these days, and if you're really following a thought leader and you think they're aligned with your values, reach out to them. Chances are most senior women and men are extremely generous with their time. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But most mentees don't have that confidence or don't think that they should, but try and reach out to them. So it's more around finding somebody that you're aligned with. And likewise for mentors, especially the more senior we get, it's almost like you're drawn to certain people. So when you see yourself in somebody young, or you see somebody who's struggling, you kind of, because you've been through so much yourself in your life and career, you almost instinctively identify and just take people on. I don't know, what's your experience?
I think that I've been a mentor to many people, and I've had many mentors, and I don't think the word mentor has come out of my mouth for any one of those relationships. It's we all have relationships with others, and the more you like someone, the more you want to help them. And of course, the mentor-mentee relationship is not a one-way street. The mentors get almost as much out of it as the mentees. So I would say that I would almost get rid of the mentor label at all, and just let's create relationships. Sometimes those relationships are different generations. Often if it's an older person with a younger person, we call it a mentor-mentee relationship. But we're just building relationships after all.
I love that. And I'm actually a huge fan of reverse mentoring, which is exactly what you're talking about. And I think that the world needs, and I 100% agree with you that actually mentors get as much, if not more, than the mentee. But I love it. Let's reframe those.
And a lot of what the mentor gets out of it is to feel like as one, I just turned 50, and one feels like one wants to have a legacy, and having someone younger to be able to say, here's maybe something I wish I'd known.
Exactly.
That's a bit of legacy that can go on to go forward. So that's a yes, certainly
I
everyone.
couldn't have put it better myself. And happy birthday.
Sorry?
50th. You just said you've
Oh,
just turned 50.
thank you. Yeah,
So
that's
happy
it.
50th
Over the
birthday.
hill, but I heard it's a long hill going down. So we'll see. We'll see. But so tell me more than like mentorship within She Breaks the Law and other organizations. How do you foster such things?
So again, through our She Connects events, whenever we do that, and or frankly, just through the community, the group that we have or the chats we do, often what I'd see is that younger women, and not just younger women, again, to be honest, mentor and mentorship relationship is not to do with age or experience either, right? But often if somebody's moving a new country or somebody's moving a new job or something, they might post, and that's how you just meet up for coffee, and the next thing you know, you're creating those relationships. Or so many people reach out to me personally, which I would love to empower them to reach out to each other, but I often am the connector. And we've also created some WhatsApp group for certain parts of the communities. For instance, our India group is actually really active on WhatsApp, and they literally reach out to each other for references, for suggestions, recommendations, all sorts of things. So it just happens organically, I suppose. We don't run a formal mentorship.
That's great. I know we're running a little bit close on time, but let's talk about, you also do a consultancy that you help people. So who do you help and how do you help them?
Oh, thank you. And thank you for remembering that. So by background, I'm a lawyer. Sorry, guilty as charged. But so are you.
Yes, but I think the lawyers are the best people, especially former lawyers.
I agree.
You want to do good.
Lawyers.
You obviously have done good, and you're a do-gooder lawyer, which are the best types of lawyers.
I love that. And so I moved away from practicing law and into disrupting and innovating the practice of law almost 15 years ago. Majority of my career I've been based in London, and I've worked with some of the largest law firms in the world, like Ashurst, HSF and Kramer, as it is now called, and the likes. And then my last role, in 2022, I moved to sunny Sydney, by the way. So I now live in Sydney.
Lovely.
Yes, and I've come all the way from Australia. And
getting over jet lag, I assume.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm still struggling a bit. And my last full-time role was at Big Four, EY, where I was the director of legal transfer and operate. So in my consulting work, I've worked mostly with not only internally in the law firms on transformation projects and helped implement cutting edge technologies, but I've also had the privilege, I suppose, of working with some of the largest corporate legal departments on their transformation journeys. So some of the examples are, for instance, one of the largest banks have helped them to create millions of pounds worth of legal tech investment in their tech stack, through to most recently, I did a transformation roadmap for an APAC and Japan technology company, just before they got the largest investment of the year, 24 billion, which was exciting.
Wow, that is exciting.
I know. And now I do personal consulting, and of course, focus on She Breaks the Law. And one of my main consulting gigs is with ILTA, actually. I'm really delighted to be consulting.
What are you going to be doing with ILTA?
I'm going to be working with Joy and Janice. Janice is the VP of content on content curation strategy.
Oh, fantastic. That's
and of
great.
course, sorry, I'm just interrupting you. That is fantastic. And I'm also relaunching ILTA in Australia.
Has there ever been in ILTA Australia?
Indeed. And there's a huge membership in Australia. But since the pandemic, I don't think we've done a lot in that region. But now that I'm there, boots on the ground, so to speak.
Given time zones, I think they need it, because I assume that you're sleeping when most of the ILTA and things in North America are happening. So,
absolutely. So we're hoping to bring back the magic in Australia.
That's fantastic. Maybe ILTACON Australia 2028.
Why not? Amen to that.
Amen to that. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations again on your award.
Thank you
so much. And do you have any closing thoughts that you'd want our listeners to hear about?
Thank you very much, Damien, first of all, for having me and making me so comfortable on the talk. I suppose my final thought would be a call to action, right? Good. And the call to action is, if you forget everything else I've said today, hopefully you won't, then please remember this one thing, which is that, as I said earlier, it's everybody's responsibility. And, the gender gap in AI is something we all need to work towards closing. As an individual, as an organization, as a vendor, whatever you are, wherever you are, please give it a thought. What's the one thing you can do to help us close the gender gap in AI?
Amen. And as a man, I will take that to heart, and I hope the listeners do too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, and really good, best of luck on all of the cool things you're doing.
Thank you, Damien.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to ILTACON Live from the Gaylord near Washington, D.C. We're not really in Washington, D.C., but it's whatever seems like Washington, D.C. with Anastasia Boyko, who is the word polymath has kind of been thrown out a lot, but I think we're truly amongst one of the Yale law grad, access to justice person, really focusing on Utah, the latest and greatest legal technology. Anastasia, welcome. And why don't you tell listeners who don't know as much about you?
Yeah, it's a funny question because I think most people can answer pretty straightforward, whereas I'm sort of a Jill of all trades. And somebody like, what did David called me Goldilocks. And I was like, I've been Goldilocksing through my career. So I've tried a lot of different things, right? Like I started out in big law in New York. Then I went to legal tech 15 years ago, really loved it. Went to the business practice management side of a law firm, then went back into innovation and in-house for Flex Talent, Player Axiom. I've run innovation projects at Yale and University of Utah, had spent a lot of time around the access to justice issues that are happening in Utah. And our sandbox. Most recently, I was a legal futurist at Filevine. So I feel like I've tried pretty much everything there is to do with a law degree except practice law.
That's pretty awesome. I would say that the next question is, why is somebody that does one thing boring and why is somebody that does many things like you pretty awesome?
I don't know if they're boring. Like I actually feel like a lot of people who do one thing are very lucky. So when I talk to lawyers, especially who found the right firm and found the right practice area that they've stayed with for 30 years, I'm actually really jealous, right? That they like landed on that because I think our selection mechanisms in law school are pretty luck based, right? Like where you end up is a matter of, did your classmates mention a specific firm? Did you read about it involved, right? Did somebody else mention it? Is that just where you got an offer, right? So many variables are happening there, and very rarely do you get to the right firm. Like I try to be really, really intentional out of law school. I was like, I like working with people. I don't want to have crazy hours, so I want to have some control over that. So that's why I did wills and trusts straight out. But then I wanted to do more business, so I went into corporate tax for hedge funds, right? So I tried to do that, but it's harder to do that for culture an organization.
Yeah, and really, if you think about it historically, you say, okay, we as a lawyer need to go deep. Like we can't be generalists. We need to be focused not just on a specialty, but a sub specialty, right? So that, and if you could do that subs, you're going to do great. That was the conventional wisdom in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, right? But with AI, I wonder if that's true. I mean, the biggest thing with AI is like you need to be able to surf the waves of being flexible. So is it better to sub specialize, or is it better to be a Jill of all trades?
Yeah, like so I love just studying behavioral patterns. I was a psych major in undergrad, and I'm fascinated about lawyer behavior. So people ask me like, why are you still in legal 20 years, right? Like we're a fairly slow moving, idiosyncratic group of people. And what I'm motivated by is like, we're so smart at certain things. We're not necessarily as good at running our organizations or being more efficient or creating new models that work. And I think AI is finally that forcing mechanism. Like I thought it was going to be the crisis of 2008, 2009, new technology coming in. I thought it might have been the talent crisis of 2021, right? Those weren't enough. I think AI is truly the forcing mechanism to get us into a place where like, I have to change the way that I do things because enough of my competitors are and enough lawyers are trying it that there's no other option because I will suffer the consequences, if not next week, right? In a few months, right? I'm going up against people in conflict situations or in deals who have these kinds of tools. So I think you need people who can be more systems-based thinkers, who have high EQ, who can think about the behavioral patterns to complement with these amazing tech solutions.
So I think I agree with you. I think there are a lot of people that say same as it ever was. I lived through the internet. That didn't change everything. I lived through 2008. That didn't change everything. And why would this be different? And I think you're right that one thing I want to bounce off you that maybe it's different is that in those other times, the in-house counsel didn't have access to the really awesome tool that is transforming all the things. So the fact that the in-house counsel might eat your external counsel's lunch, maybe that's something that tips over. What do you think of that?
I think it's a big part of it. And so as I've been thinking about like what is interesting in this moment in time, one of the things I'm focusing on is this relationship with general counsel and in-house departments and their outside law firms. And a lot of the feedback I've been hearing from people in my network is like my rates just keep going up, right? And then a lot of people saying like, I don't know if lawyers really people really like to spend time with their lawyers if they don't have to. So we've got these challenges in the way that we've cultivated relationships in the profession. And AI is that thing that's going to make it easier. Like, I mean, I love working for Practical Law, and I think we were able to offer that to a lot of in-house departments. But I think just the scale and depth and capability of AI is different than some of the earlier know-how and research tools that exist. And so I think at this point, as soon as in-house departments can pull more and more of this in and be less and less reliant on firms, we're going to see really clearly in the low tide of that how many firms have done good job keeping relationships.
I think that's right, because to demand $2,500 an hour, that's fees, you really need to be able to show the value of that $2,500, and the delta between that and a 2-cent ChatGPT question, right, is the difference between that delta is that $2,500 worth of delta or not. And I think lawyers are going to have to.
Yeah, and many of them seem confused as we start talking about value-added billing, right? Everyone's like, what is value-added billing? Like, where is the treasure hunt? Like, how do we do this? And I thought, like, we've been talking about alternative fees for a really long time.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand what value you're bringing to your clients, we are in a very bizarre place, right? Or even conversations I'm having with finance leads at firms who, want to figure out how to bill for the AI. Sure, like there's a time and a place to have a conversation about how to use AI plus tools that cost a lot of money. But fundamentally, like, I don't believe that your clients should be worried about what your cost of doing business is, right? They want really good service. They want to be able to rely on you. They want to be able to trust you. That's relationship building.
Yeah.
And the more you pull them into your own books, the further away you are getting from the relationship, right? Like, I don't want to have that conversation with my lawyer. You figure out how much it costs you to give me really good, accurate, responsive, proactive advice.
That's right. And there's the old joke about, you go to a mechanic and they hit one thing and say that'll be, $3,000. I said, you just hit one thing. And they said, well, it took me decades to figure out where to hit. So that's the $2,500 lawyer is probably, it took me decades to do that. But I guess the question is, how many of us have those really valuable things in our brains that are worth $2,500? That's question number one. Question number two is, do you really want to bill by the hour for that? Or should you just say, hey, this is the value I'm providing. I do it in 10 seconds. And I'm not going to tell you how long it took me. I'm just going to give you the outside. So what do you think of the billable hour going away?
I would love to. Like, I've been obsessed with alternative fees since 2009. I organized a panel around this. And I, like everybody who discovers alt fees, thinks I'm the first person to discover alt fees. I am not, right? Much smarter people than me for decades have been talking about this. Like, it's taken time for the billable hour to get here from bulk billing before. I think that there's a real important nuance here to understand, like, what is it that you are providing for your clients? And once you get clear there, you're a little bit less worried about that structure, because if your clients feel like they can rely on you and you can figure out what their future problems are, and then we're discussing what the best way to price that is for them, whether it's a flat fee or a collar or something else, we're in a much better situation. But like, if you haven't gone back to understanding what the cost is of that delivery, and you haven't looked through your data about how much it generally costs, I think this is where people get really overwhelmed, where they have information to make these decisions. And lawyers oftentimes, we're a little self-deprecating, right? It's like, I don't know if I have anything of value. I'm just going to keep increasing my rates. But you do, right? So if you sit back and you think, of my years of experience, what do I know uniquely better than anybody else? And that's not what Chambers is telling you and where you're ranked. It's a question of, I myself have been working for this subset of clients in this particular sector for a long time. So I am the expert on that, right? Like, I was talking to someone, we were talking about like legal services for bar owners. What a niche. And there are lots of bars in this country who have unique issues. And so if you're a lawyer who's developed an expertise, figure out what that is, go to those industry conferences, know that about yourself and build up your confidence around that and lead with that. And then use AI to help you deliver better service there, distinguish yourself, right? Like, because I think a lot of the stuff around like business development becomes ancillary, and it feels like, okay, I'm a partner now, I have to build a book of business. No, you should have been spending these years thinking about what is the unique niche that I really like. How do I communicate that to the market? How do I communicate it to my internal partners? So it's a no-brainer, because you know who you are.
That's right.
You know what you stand for.
That's right. And what you know, that niche, there's probably three areas of corpuses of knowledge of that. One is the law, the cases, the statutes, the regs. The second is, really the knowledge that is in the documents. That is in both the documents that you give to the client, as well as the documents that knowledge management people around here have been collecting. Say what makes the deal go this way or that way, or what goes to litigation go south, right? So all of those things, that knowledge management. And then the third is what's stuck in your brain that hasn't yet gone into the knowledge management. And how do you capture this stuff in the brain? And I guess the question I have for you is, one way you could capture it is to record yourself. Like, like we're doing right here, right? You could transcribe that recording, and then putting it into AI, saying put all of that into a knowledge management corpus, so it's an artifact to be able to go through later. The question I have for you is, one, how reasonable do you think lawyers are going to record their conversations to put them in a corpus? And number two, that valuable stuff that's going from your brain that is a differentiator is now being given to your law firm. That means that maybe if I want to jump ship, maybe I don't want to give that to my law firm. So number one, are we going to be able to collect it? And number two, what's the value of it?
Very good question. So my first initial gut is that, I love efficiency, right? Like, let's capture all of this to get insights from it. Putting on my former legal futurist hat, right? Like, I actually don't love giving the AI our creative work and our like IP. I actually like that there are certain things that I keep in my mind instead of training a model on it.
That ship may have sailed, though.
No, it may have sailed for sure, right? Like, I think that people feel differently about those things. It's more just like my humanist take on it is like, I'd love to be able to write something down in a notebook that people can't even read my handwriting anymore, right? Where it's like, I can barely read my handwriting, but like, it's mine. It's my creative work product, and I feel really great about that. That said, there's so much value in just, to your point, cataloging your knowledge bases so that you for yourself can remember, I'm actually uniquely good at this, or there might be a way to position this to help my clients in a different way. I mean, a lot of law firms right now are looking to figure out, how do we create a revenue stream from the insights that we have as a firm in a specific sector and a specific practice group, right? That opens up a lot of interesting questions around conflicts of interests and ethics. I think those will continue to be explored, but as we keep balancing this business versus profession, which they're both, right? But it's a hard, I think, friction point for us as lawyers, because we keep getting pushed in the business direction. And I think right now what's actually needed in the profession is a reawakening around professional obligation and responsibility.
Yeah, I think through my career, and I'm going to speak for myself that I'm old, and I'm not going to say you're old, but like in 1999, there was a real question as to whether we as lawyers could email, because of the ethical implications of that. So we put off email until our clients made us. And then there was a big question like, no, I can't do e-discovery because I need eyes on it, until we had to, right? And I'm not going to the cloud, but then of course everyone went to the cloud during the pandemic. So like we've resisted change, and that's always fallen. So I wonder if this recording of ourselves, like people like today, I know that people say we're not going to be doing Zoom calls, we're not going to record my Zoom calls with my client because I don't want a record of that, right? I wonder how soon or if that will fall, if eventually we'll be able to say, I'm not going to, maybe I'm going to have to record it, and then it becomes part of the record that I can be able to make the corpus better.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping we would be done with Zoom after 2020 because it was just such an energy exacting medium. I actually think behaviorally we're moving in the opposite direction of in-person and phone calls and conversations. I think many of us are just inundated with the numerous modes of technology and communication that we have, and our brains don't enjoy it, right? Like, we feel really stressed in those environments. And now that we have so many different channels of communication, I actually don't think it's the most effective way of getting messages across, right? And we know, like, we have enough data around the fact that to counterbalance the efficiency of AI, we need a lot more just human interaction. Like, what AI can't do is have the one-on-one conversation to pick up the verbal cues, right? To understand that. So if I'm a lawyer and I'm on a phone call with a client or on a Zoom, I'm probably checking email, I'm probably on my phone. Like, I'm missing a good chunk of that discussion and the nonverbal things that are happening. I'm probably missing what my client actually wants to get out of our transaction and what they're paying me for, right? I'm just going to go to the shortcut of like, okay, previously clients who act this way, who ask this question, want X, versus maybe I should ask what the outcome is here, or pick up that this person is emotionally distressed. And there might be another solution that will be better for them than the one that I've delivered on over and over again. So I think there's going to be a lot of leaning into EQ because of how AI is modifying the way that we operate every day.
I think that's right. I think we're losing those skills. And I think that with the technology getting better at as maybe supplanting those skills, maybe the skills will atrophy even more.
Especially for lawyers, right? We know this, that those are not where we index highest. And so I think this is where it's a good moment for law firms and law firm leaders and lawyers who know they have those skills to lean into them and keep enhancing them, because that's how you're going to get people to want to stay, to want to build with you, to get through these waves. Like, one of the things I've been telling people is like, we're going through a really massive shift. And what you need right now, because none of us have any idea how this is going to turn out, is you got to get some surfing skills, right? And those surfing skills are about finding your true north, understanding your focus, understanding like where you need to have your foot placement. A lot of it is just basic human grounding, which I get through yoga. I teach yoga. I've been practicing for 21 years. For me, it's always whenever I'm overwhelmed and there's an uncertain situation, it's like, all right, get my footing, get my breath, ground, right? And then I can make good decisions because I have a lot of knowledge. It's sitting in my body, to your point about lawyers, right? Like it's there. I don't even know that it's there. It's subconscious. And so how do I access that? Actually, it's a lot of this somatic work that seems like woo-woo kind of stuff, but your body has a lot of information. Your mind has a lot of subconscious information. Use working with your body and your emotions to get better decision-making on your own part, right? And to navigate these natural stressors better, because you're gonna be better for yourself and for your clients.
Yeah, that's great. We said earlier about polymath, and so you connecting yoga with the legal technology and the practice of law, that demonstrates the disparate connections that you can be able to pull together and pull a thread, much like large language models can pull these things together. So I think today we need Anastasia Boyko to be able to draw these things, and there's no one like you that can be able to do this. So I guess the question is, liberal arts, you're a Yale person, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to, this obviously comes from your taking liberal arts and connecting disparate concepts. How important are the liberal arts these days to be able to do these things?
I think pretty important. So I built the largest leadership program in academia when I was at Yale, and it was leadership being an overarching concept, but thinking about innovation and career pathing and what do lawyers need to fill the gaps to be in a point of impact. But a lot of the alums who I spoke to, who are incredibly impressive in their own right? Like big business sense would tell me actually these students need a training in the classics and in humanities, right? Like there was a funny meme going around, right, about the fact that like why do we need liberal arts education? Like maybe this is the moment where we have a lot of changes in our government. Now we have to ask like why it's so hard for us to tell the truth in different media sources, right? Like this is why, right? This like liberal arts teaches us how to think. It teaches us how to interact. And as much as we want to think that we're singular in this generation, in this moment in time, which we are, right? Like every moment is uniquely different. There's so many patterns in human history and the evolutions of governments and empires and the psyche that repeat themselves, right? So we, as much as we want to be different, we are cycling through the human experience. And there's a lot to learn about what worked and what didn't work in the past, and why certain principles are really important in democracy, why the way that we treat each other is really important, why, taking shortcuts and integrity is a bad thing. And so I think we need to remind ourselves of why we live in a civil society and the way that we do and what we prioritize. And it may seem like old school, boring stuff that doesn't matter, but I think it undergirds the foundation of our society and our interrelational aspects.
We've been talking about that since Socrates and Plato's, right? These are how do we form our society? What is integrity? What are ethics, right? These are all things lawyers should be caring about.
And look, I understand there are a lot of critiques of those thinkers, and we should take the person as a whole. But there's a reason why these messages have resonated for centuries, and why these things are super important to us as a society. We should remember that, right? Like there is a deep fracturing that's happening, and lawyers are like, we are the stewards of the realm. Like we understand how the entire enterprise operates, and that's a lot to shoulder. I understand that, but simultaneously, like you've got such privilege. With privilege comes obligation. And therefore, if you want to keep a society like this, you need to understand why the society was built this way and what the foundation is.
That's fantastic. We only have a bit of time left. So I have one question and then we'll close. So the question I have is that somebody, all these things, high integrity, high ethics, the emotional quotient to be able to see someone's body language and that kind of thing. It's been thrown awry with all of the legal technology coming out. A friend of mine pulled me and said, hey, I've done something cool. Let me show you, where he took the Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos, took the entire record of the Theranos trial and all that. And then he has a way that you can do a deposition practice where he played the role of Elizabeth Holmes, and then the robot played the role of the SEC investigator, and said during the deposition, he would say something truthful, and then the score of truthfulness went to 100%, and the score of confidence was 100%. But then it started being less truthful, that dropped to 50 to 25, and the confidence level varied. So these are things that in the past you needed high emotional quotient to be able to say what the confidence level is, and to be able to say, oh, you missed something here. But the robot did that quite well, thank you very much, in the year of our Lord 2025. So all of these things, that high integrity, high emotional quotient, these are all things that humans can do today and will continue to do for a while. But for how long?
Yeah, and I star asterisk, right? Like the caveat is we know that AI models tend to be sometimes sycophantic, right?
Yeah.
And tend to reinforce our confirmation bias on these things. And so a lot of this is going to be we have to decide for ourselves whether these models are actually accurate in the same way that we watch an AI video and we can tell, right? Like even if it's really good, we can tell
Yeah,
it's AI.
for now.
I think, yeah, and to a large extent, it's going to get better. But same with emotional interrelatability. I don't think the machine has fully gotten to that interrelatability. I think it's nice to have ways to measure behavioral accuracy or behavioral reactions. I think we did that with lie detector tests, right? Like we keep trying to do that and replace humans. But my question is like, what do we as humans want? Like, do we want the interpersonal? Absolutely love the gut check. Love an extra data set here to make us better at it, right? Like a lot of people are getting valuable resources with ChatGPT in professional development and sort of like therapeutic model kind of environments. For many people, that's great, right? Because I think it enhances their ability to be better managers, better partners, right? Like find more fulfillment in their lives. And there's like the human experience, which you don't want to forget. You don't want to live through a machine or default most of those reactions to a machine. You want to be a person.
That's right. I find myself conflicted because I agree with you. And I also want your brain to be put into a clone so I can chat with you for hours and hours at 3 a.m. whenever I want. So I think that your brain should be bottled somehow and made into something that I can interact and the world can interact with. So since I can't have that today, why don't we close by saying, like, what are you excited about? What are you optimistic about as we go forward into our AI future?
Yeah, so what I'm excited about, the word that I've been coalescing around at this conference and previous conferences this year is nexus. Like there are a lot of strings of things we've done in legal tech, in the profession, in our innovation systems, in access to justice. Like there's a nexus to all of these things. And so I'm really excited for polymath to have a moment, right, where we can see a lot of things connect all at once. And it becomes this really generative accelerator because folks can see what's happening over here in this universe and that universe. I love different functions of law firms coming together, right, that haven't been together before. And innovation is the nexus of that. And so I just want people to think about how all of these things intersect and get out of these echo chambers and the narrowness of what we do to realize the cross-pollination is actually where the insights are.
Nexus, I love it. You all know Harari, of course, and you, polymaths both. Anastasia Boyko, it is always so much fun talking to you. I love it every time. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with some of our audience. Thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Welcome to ILTACON, a beautiful outside of Washington, D.C. You really can't call this Washington, D.C., but
not quite.
we're here at the Gaylord. We're talking with Scott Kelly from NetDocuments, who is really one of the smartest people in legal tech and also a do-gooder. So put smart people and do-gooder together, and that makes for a great combination. So welcome, Scott. And why don't you tell people that don't know as much about you, your background, and what you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. My background is I was an attorney a long time ago in a galaxy far away, civil rights attorney at the ACLU. After that, I started a legal tech company and ran that for about 6 years. We were in kind of like process and document automation, maybe for some of you legal tech geeks, after Pattern, also known as Community Lawyer. We had a couple different names
Which
over
is
the
awesome.
years. And then we were acquired by NetDocuments, and I've been at NetDocuments for the last, it's now over 4 years. I'm somehow mathed out to 5 ILTACONs, so I don't know how that works.
That's a unit of measure, I think.
Yeah, there you go. And come full circle. This is my first ILTACON, and this is now where I am again. So, and at NetDocuments, I lead our AI search and automation product portfolio. So
Good. And so to tell a little bit about like what are your day-to-day, how are you really figuring out how things can be found and how you can automate things?
yeah, no, it's been an amazing, journey for us as a company. I think about 3 years ago, like a lot of legal tech companies, we had a moment where like, I think there's a real there with this technology. I think this is a true platform shift that we're about to experience. And there's just so many applications, as you know, and with public data, same thing with private data. There's so many useful insights and pieces of data that are just floating out there in your document management system. But for so long, it was kind of inaccessible, either because search was bad or the way the metadata, fields were set up was insufficient. And frankly, it stayed kind of inert and dead inside of the DMS. And so a big part of the journey for us at NetDocuments has been like, how do we bring that insight out? How do we unlock your precedent to really turbocharge you as a user? And then how that shifted, I think, in a really interesting way is how do we get the DMS ready for not just your users, but the users of the future, which are agents, right? Have an agent-ready DMS, and that's been a big part of the work we've been doing at NetDocuments.
That's great, and really your career spanned both the old world of symbolic AI, that is a good old-fashioned AI and coding, and then there's the new world of neural nets. And so maybe you could talk about, maybe take us chronologically how important metadata and that kind of thing is in symbolic AI, and how that gets augmented with the neural net AI.
Yeah, I mean it's a really interesting truth, I think, of this new world that we're in, where I think a lot of folks are ready to say, oh well, why do we even need metadata? Why do we even need any of this stuff we used to care about? And what you find is actually, if you have the right metadata, it actually unlocks the power of these agents. So like one really straightforward use case is deep research, right? Deep research is a really powerful capability that you see in the likes of ChatGPT and Claude, and increasingly in legal specific agents, to go search over a corpus of documents or the web, whatever you're pointing it at, and surface the right information. But if you do just a pure semantic search, what you're going to find is your results aren't very good. The answers you're getting back from deep research aren't very good. What you need to do is combine the best of both worlds. You need to be able to run a semantic search, but also pair that with fine-grained metadata filters. So you can say, I just want to look at documents of this type in this jurisdiction over this date range. And oh, by the way, I'm also going to hit it with semantic search. And that's what we're so excited about at NetDocuments, is we brought that to our customer base. You can now take 30 million documents and your custom taxonomy, and you can run auto profiling over that and get the right metadata you want associated with the documents. So your DMS is now ready for an agent to traverse it. And you can also, and we're a couple months away from this, do semantic search, hybrid search over your lexical key terms and the conceptual meaning of your documents to get to that correct insight.
That's great. And a lot of people call that neural symbolic AI, that is connecting the neural net with the symbolic AI to be able to do the best. That either one of both of them together is better than either of them separately. It's kind of the gestalt. And we've talked about that's kind of retrieval side. Could you also talk about how maybe you can now the old world, you needed to have humans tag things, but now these days you can be able to have the machines, the neural nets, maybe tag more quickly and perhaps more accurately than the humans have in the past. Can you talk about the tagging process and how that's changed?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty interesting. So the old kind of approach was either you had humans doing the tagging, or you had kind of a traditional ML model that would go and, you'd pre-train it on the entities that you cared about and maybe the types of documents it should expect to ingest. And that was an okay approach. And I think there was a moment at the beginning of this kind of platform shift where it was like, well, maybe there's going to be a space for kind of traditional ML approaches to tagging documents. And I think what we've seen just brick by brick, day by day, is that these foundational models are getting so much better in along all the areas that you care about. So they're getting more, cost efficient, they're getting faster, and they're getting more accurate. And so what we're seeing is, you can point a, GPT we use like 4.1 mini is a good model, I would say, for extraction. And across the vast majority of use cases, all you need to do is describe what you want, give it a definition, and point it. And you're going to get really high quality results back. Now, depending on how you're using that data, you might need to benchmark it. You might need to measure your accuracy. But we're seeing really, really good results. I don't know what you're saying.
I'm also seeing really, and this is the worst the technology will ever be. That 5 just came out, 6 will come out, and of course Google, which has been the king of search forever, is now Gemini is arguably the best in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the foundational models are going to slow down anytime soon. So 4.1 mini is the best today, but what's the best tomorrow?
Yeah.
And so and of course, the capabilities are one vector, and the other vector is cost, which is dropping. So maybe could you talk about as intelligence gets better and as cost goes down at the same time, where are we headed with being able to do things with a corpus like NetDocuments has?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a moment of truth for a lot of our customers where we show them this capability and they're like, wait a minute, I can pull out all of this information from the DMS. We need to totally revisit like what actual metadata fields we have. And so we see customers now, like they're going through a whole process internally where they're like, now that we know that this is possible, like we have to revisit what we're even thinking about pulling out. Maybe we look at a Sally or a Folio, or maybe, in a lot of cases, it's a different turn on that kind of standard. Maybe they've winnowed it down to their practice areas that they care about, and they're augmenting because before there was sort of this feeling that like, look, if we're going to have busy attorneys and paralegals filling out these profiles, it's just not going to happen. So we're going to really restrict it. And so they kind of narrowed their vision. And now we're seeing that vision really expand to like, what do we really want to know about our documents?
And let's talk about, the kind of homegrown taxonomies, because I with Sally and Folio, I've mapped many law firms' taxonomies to Sally and Folio. And a lot of law firms will have things like SEC investigations and enforcement in the UK or in Texas or right. So that's one tag. But of course, those are many tags. The SEC is a tag, enforcement is a tag, investigation is a tag, and Texas is a tag. So a lot of firms kind of have their Frankenstein-y tags that really they need to be kind of unfrankensteined into their component parts. Can you say like you've seen many customers' taxonomies, and you've seen probably good ones and less good ones. Can you say what is a better taxonomy versus a less good taxonomy?
Yeah, I think the best taxonomy is the one that actually is valuable to the frontline workers, right? It's like, what am I actually trying to find on my, on a day-to-day basis? What kind of precedents? What do I care about? And we've seen the most successful firms are the ones who have engaged deeply with the practitioners in different departments and said, what do you care about? And in some cases, that may be like, they just want 5 doc types, and others might look at that and be like, oh my gosh, but why not do 200 or 300? But they find that no, they really just care about bucketing things in that way. And it works for them. I think where firms can sometimes get in trouble is where there's this kind of siloing of the KM function from the frontline service delivery function. And so you kind of get like all this ideation on this level of people being like, oh, what if we did that? What if we did that? And they roll out this taxonomy. And then the attorneys who are actually using it day to day are like, this isn't helpful to me. Like, this doesn't help me do work. I think now you have to take that a step further. And it's like, how can you help, agents do work? Like, one of the things you've probably seen in your testing is if you give agents too many filters, they can be overly restrictive in how they run searches and trying to drill down on the right thing.
Mhm.
And so sometimes the art of unlocking an agent and its potential is saying, what are the 5, 6, or 7 attributes that we actually want it searching on? And all that other stuff we're using for driving, reporting, retention, other things, but we certainly don't want the AI futzing around and trying to filter on it because they're going to miss so much key insight. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I really like the insight about the knowledge innovation need to be closely bound with the end user because the use cases are everything.
Yeah.
And so if the end user were to say, hey, if you were asked them what metadata fields do you think that you need, their eyes are going to glaze over and say, I don't know, 5, right?
Yeah.
But if you say like, what buttons do you want or what drop-down menus would be helpful to you, then they'd be like, oh, I would love to do this. So even putting it in the UI kind of interface, like what buttons, it really is this idea of use cases to be able to then spark the idea. So I love the idea of you need to connect the knowledge folks with the frontline people. So let's talk a little bit about like the user interface and how you like you're extracting the things.
Mhm.
And if you have 10,000 different metadata fields, that's really hard from a user interface to be able to say, no, I just want it simple, right?
Yeah.
But then you say, no, the lawyer says, no, I want it the really granular thing, right? So
Yeah.
how do you balance simplicity with the complexity?
Yeah, it's a very, I think it's a tough challenge. I don't think there's a right answer, for every firm. But what we found is basically there's some firms that they're working with nothing really. And honestly, they don't want to go through the process of like talking to all these different, departments and trying to figure out like what the right taxonomy is. And so in those cases, we just come to them and we have an applied AI team and they'll just say, hey, here's a taxonomy that we've seen be helpful. And actually, we've mapped it to Folio. So it's not quite as large as that, but it's, it's a
everybody
subset,
has a subset, yeah.
Right. And we mapped it to that and we found that that's useful. But then we have a lot of firms that are like, you know what, we know exactly what we want. And we need the tool to allow us to map that and run a flow on that. And so that's where our process automation capabilities at NetDocuments really can help out. We have a no code kind of like app builder. It's the year of app builders.
Of course
Everybody's got one now. But we've had one for a long time. And
not agent?
Not agent. Yeah. We find that people, they design very bespoke workflows where, for example, maybe they want to rename documents to fit with a certain convention but that convention varies by office or that convention varies by department and they do things in a different way. And so they need a workflow tool that could deterministically evaluate, okay, this document has been profiled with this office. Now, okay, let's look at the 4 corners of the document, pass that into an LLM and use this like schema. Maybe it's like for a contract, it's like effective date dash, the doc type dash a comma delimited list of the parties. And that's the name they want. But in a different department, it's a very different thing. You need a workflow tool to fine grain map out those processes. At least that's our experience.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then really, I love talking about data with you, and knowledge graphs come up frequently. So as you have nodes, that is nouns, and you have relationships between those nodes, that is verbs. Maybe we could think about either, Google has knowledge graphs, Amazon has knowledge graphs, Facebook has knowledge graphs. Everybody's using knowledge graphs to be able to help search and to be able to help classify. Can you say either what you have in NetDocuments or what you're thinking through in the skunkworks of NetDocuments as to knowledge graphs and maybe how they fit into where we are or where we're headed?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think an important question because, for so long, knowledge graphs were this great idea, but in practice, like you really couldn't tap into that data unless you just had, everybody in lockstep profiling their documents the right way or mapping things the right way in their experience management system, whatever it was for tracking those relationships. But now that you have these tools that can go through and understand what's in a document, you can go beyond these kind of like flat hierarchies of like, oh, they're all this doc type. And you can start to relate things to like, okay, these documents relate to this matter. Yep. And this matter relates to this client. And this client is, related to this office. And you can start to put those pieces together. Not quite the verbs you're talking about, but at least the, the nouns,
properties,
starting there. And so creating that kind of like matter graph, we actually think is a crucial bit of context to be passing into agents so that they really understand not just the flat hierarchy of your documents or the flat hierarchy of your, PMS, but actually what the matter means. We're not there yet. We do have, great semantic search that we're rolling out. We do have, this AI profiling capability. But I think the next step for us is how do you start to create that more fine-grained matter map and then embed that into agents so that they can really quickly traverse the matter and get to the real answers that you want them to get to.
I could talk with you for 8 hours, and I hope that someday we will. But sadly, we're coming close to the end. I'd like to ask as a close, we are in unprecedented times, I think. What makes you optimistic? What makes you hopeful that we're going to be able to do much cooler things going forward?
What makes me optimistic? I mean, I think events like this actually make me really optimistic. I mean, here's a great example. Model context protocol. You asked like 95% of the people walking around here, like maybe 6 months ago, what that was, and maybe they, wouldn't know what it was. They had no idea. But the rate of adoption of these concepts that seemed esoteric just 6 months ago, and now people are like, oh yeah, you got to have, an MCP server set up to hook up your agent, not only to the search and fetch functions, but also to the tools you've built. And, the future of search is you've got a model context server, MCP server over there and an MCP server over there for, your private and your public data. And the fact that people are willing to embrace this change instead of like letting it wash over them, I think that makes me really encouraged for our industry, and that, we're not sitting there and kind of burying our head in the sand. I think people know that this change is real and it's coming, and we got to be, a part of it, or else it's going to happen to us.
Absolutely. Well, kudos to ILTACON for putting together smart people, including one of the smartest people in legal tech sitting right here next to me. So, Scott Kelly, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I could honestly talk for hours. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for sharing some of your wisdom.
Yeah, really appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.